Chapter 180. Control. Lin Feng was extremely shocked. He had once seen this term in an ancient book, but he had never been able to understand or comprehend it. The characteristic of a titled martial god was the ability to control. He hadn't reached that level yet, so he didn't understand. But now, so this is control. Lin Feng let out a long breath, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Control one's own body. Control the environment. The power produced by the rotation of the soul heart was called control, allowing one to become an independent individual, an individual that was separated from the sky martial continent. Control one's own body, counteracting gravity and naturally being able to float. Changing the direction of the power, one could fly. However, the soul heart was still in the infant stage, and its power was still in its initial state. Although it could control and fly at will, its flying speed was limited. As the soul heart grew and strengthened, slowly, it would naturally provide greater help to its owner. Controlling the environment meant a closer connection between one's own body and the environment. Outstanding body movement techniques were still limited to the use and combination of the environment. Right now, the existence of control allowed one to become an independent individual, an individual that was equal to the environment. So, this is the realm of the body movement technique. Lin Feng nodded slowly. Everything seemed to be solved like a riddle. No wonder. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Thinking of his crushing defeat to Ziluan, it wasn't unjust at all. The level of Emperor Wu and the martial god were two completely different levels, just like the difference between a warrior and an ordinary person. Just because of the existence of control, the martial god had already completely defeated the Emperor Wu. It was like a circle, a cage, and the warriors at the level of Emperor Wu were still inside. As for the titled martial god, they had already jumped out of the circle. This was control. Am I already a titled martial god now? Lin Feng muttered softly, and his eyes flashed with doubt. The three characteristics of a titled martial god. First, being able to fly independently. Second, being able to sense the energy of heaven and earth, possessing one of the 5 types of origin energy. Third, having ability. Lin Feng muttered silently. Suddenly, he frowned slightly and shook his head. He only possessed the first characteristic. Theoretically speaking, crossing the 5-colored sky bridge would allow one to sense the energy of heaven and earth. But Lin Feng pursed his lips. What he had crossed was not the 5-colored sky bridge. Naturally, he could not sense any of the 5 elemental energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. What secrets does this void bridge hold? Lin Feng fell into deep thought. Suddenly, Lin Feng's face turned green, and his eyes were filled with shock. I seem to recall that the metamorphosis of a conferred martial god originates from the Dantian. Lin Feng's expression was incomparably astonished. But when I became a titled martial god, what transformed was my mind and soul power. What's going on? Just now, he had been immersed in the joy of breaking through to the titled martial god realm and had completely put this matter aside. Now that he had calmed down, Lin Feng realized where the problem lay. It was like a freak combination of factors, and it was extremely strange. He seemed to be walking on a different path. He did not know if it was a shortcut, a fork in the road, or a completely wrong path. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath, and his eyes sparkled. No matter if it was good or bad, it had already happened. He would only know in the future. My body has changed. Lin Feng clenched his fist and felt the surging power. It was as if it was forcefully suppressed. No matter what, it was a fact that he had become a titled martial god. It was as if his life had taken a leap forward, and it had indeed happened. That's right, the primordial fire. Lin Feng closed his eyes. In an instant, Lin Feng's consciousness entered his body, and he saw the familiar fire lotus still spinning. However, it was different from before. It seemed as if there was a strong force pushing the fire lotus, causing it to spin at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, the number of petals of the fire lotus had decreased by a lot. Lin Feng looked at it and was immediately shocked. The green primordial fire mist. The originally faint yellow color had already turned green. When Lin Feng saw that bewitching green color, he became extremely excited. Clearly, the appearance of the soul heart in his mind had not only strengthened his body and soul, but also the primordial fire mist. And the increase in the primordial fire mist represented hiss. The enchanting emerald green flame burned, emitting a ferocious light. The sensitivity of the primordial fire has increased tremendously. It has at least surpassed the 10th grade. Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. In his mind, he could not help but recall the scene of the intermediate apprentice trial. In that sea of fire, what he had was the power of this emerald green primordial fire. At that time, he was an invincible existence. I don't need to rely on the geographical advantage. I also have this power now. Lin Feng clenched his fists, and the primordial fire was extinguished. His strength had increased by more than 10 times. Lin Feng slowly walked out of the center of the void bridge. The mist was still swirling around him, but Lin Feng could no longer feel any changes in his body. As his life level increased, he absorbed the primordial fire mist. The energy was like air. His body had completely transformed. Last time, I lost to Ziluan mainly because my force was suppressed. The difference in level was too great. Lin Feng muttered. After breaking through, he finally understood the difference in level between a titled martial god and Emperor Wu. Indeed, it was too great. We both just broke through. In terms of control, she is not much better than me. Lin Feng's eyes shone. Moreover, I can enter the intermediate training space and train in the Migres Temple. With a 100-time ratio, my agility realm will definitely increase in a short period of time. As for attack power, Lin Feng's mind suddenly recalled that day's battle, when Ziluan attacked him with that green light. She has fused with the power of the wood origin. Lin Feng frowned. Although the primordial fire is strong, there is still a difference in level. She has the power of the wood origin. It is hard to tell who is stronger and who is weaker, but my soul power is definitely stronger than hers. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The appearance of the soul heart allowed his soul power to reach a new level. Compared to the improvement of his body, the improvement of his soul power was the most powerful. The only thing I need to worry about is my ability. Every martial artist who breaks through to titled martial god can obtain the gift of the wood origin. Lin Feng thought of Ziluan's green tree that stopped him that day. He also thought of Marshall's was lightning. Suddenly, Ziyao's flower appeared in his mind. He felt envious but also a little nervous. He did not have the wood origin. I wonder if I can obtain an ability. Lin Feng sighed. He pondered as he walked. Soon, Lin Feng crossed the void bridge. What he saw was an empty passage in the shape of a cylinder. It looked like a path that led to the sky. After crossing the 5-color bridge, it will be the 5-color passage. Lin Feng muttered. If the 5-color bridge is compatible with the wood origin, then the 5-color passage's existence is most likely to obtain an ability. This void passageway should be the same. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was filled with anticipation. An ability was extremely important to a titled martial god. It directly affected their strength. I wonder if I can obtain an ability. Lin Feng stepped into the circular hole with anticipation and nervousness. In an instant, there was a flash of light. Lin Feng felt as though he had stepped into another space. Everything around him changed instantly. He could no longer see the ethereal existence. He could no longer see the 5-color bridge or the hazy mist. There was only the cylindrical passage in front of him. He couldn't see the end of it. What is this place? Lin Feng was surprised. The passage was filled with illusions and mysteries. It was as if he had drawn some kind of pattern, or as if he had carved some kind of handwriting. Front and back, crisscrossing and messy, it gave people a dazzling feeling. When he looked carefully, he felt even more dizzy. His heart beat faster. Shaking his head, Lin Feng walked forward curiously. There was a flash of light in front of him. With every step he took, Lin Feng could see a scene in front of him. A familiar feeling appeared in his mind. His heart beat faster. The scene in front of him made him feel familiar. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His soul heart was spinning. A strange energy was emitted. Why do I have such a special feeling? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He suddenly stopped. The scene in front of him didn't change like a page. Instead, it formed a strange scene. It was like flowing light, but also like bright stars. There was a flash of light. There was no end to it. However, there was a feeling in his mind. He couldn't put his finger on it. Lin Feng stood there in a daze for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. He couldn't figure it out. Strange. Lin Feng pondered. What is the meaning of this passage? Were these moving scenes? Moreover, shouldn't the power of the origin energy be a gift from the heavens when I break through to the titled martial god realm? He couldn't think of an answer. He couldn't see what was going on. Lin Feng sighed softly. He could only continue walking forward with a frown. Perhaps if I continue walking forward, the gift from the heavens will happen. No matter what, let's walk and see. Lin Feng muttered to himself. However, he wasn't discouraged. Since he chose this path, he would walk it to the end. Instead of regretting, it was better to think about how to walk this path. One step, another step. The scene in front of him kept changing. The soul heart in his mind spun and emitted a strange energy. Everything seemed to have a special connection. He didn't know how many scenes had flashed before his eyes. Lin Feng had a vague feeling that they were familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on it. There were many images that made Lin Feng's heart race. However, what was the use of stopping and looking at the first image? Lin Feng didn't know. He didn't want to waste time. I want to see what's so special about this passage. Lin Feng muttered to himself and took another step forward. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed again. In the starry sky, a fiery red meteor fell. It was sometimes fast, sometimes slow. One after another, it was like a meteor shower. The fiery red light was extremely dazzling. In an instant, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were bright. His breathing became hurried. His body's senses became extremely clear. As the soul heart in his mind continued to rotate, strands of strange energy began to emanate from it. Lin Feng stood in place, stunned. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 181. In the training grounds. There is no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. The news of Lin Feng entering the Dragonification ancient ruins quickly spread. This lad is so impatient, Wang Chong chuckled. Junior is only an intermediate Emperor Wu. Want to be too dangerous? Lala frowned. Even though Lin Feng had become the strongest Emperor Wu, everyone in the spear training grounds knew that Lin Feng was only an intermediate Emperor Wu. And the death rate of an intermediate Emperor Wu entering the Dragonification ancient ruins was as high as 99%. Indeed, if an ordinary intermediate Emperor Wu were to enter the Dragonification ancient ruins, their strength would be reduced by half. Let alone plundering others, they might not even be able to deal with the Dragon Soul Beast and Dragon Soul Beast. However, Lin Feng was clearly an exception. I don't know about the others, but Junior will definitely come out alive. In the tempering pool, a steel-like body was trembling violently. Little Jian, facing the terrifying pressure coming from his surroundings, little Jian's veins bulged as he gritted his teeth and persevered. I won't lose again. Fang Ning, Lin Feng, don't even think about abandoning me. Whatever your persistence can do, I, little Jian, can do as well. Wait for me. I will enter the Dragonification too. I will definitely catch up to you. His eyes were filled with determination. Waves of intense pain assaulted him, but little Jian stood firm like a pine tree, tenacious and stubborn. He was a genius who was said to be favored by God. In his heart, he also had a similar sense of pride. This lad has improved quite a bit. It seems like his pride has been hurt. Elder son chuckled with his hands behind his back. In the void tunnel, Lin Feng stood quietly. Motionless, Lin Feng seemed to have turned into a statue. His body was surrounded by a faint layer of energy, making Lin Feng look ethereal and ethereal. His eyes shone brightly like the stars in the sky. Lin Feng had entered a mysterious state. Mysterious, peculiar. Lin Feng seemed to be floating in the middle of a starry sky. One after another, meteorites flew past in front of him. In Lin Feng's eyes, they seemed to have become extremely slow. Lin Feng could even see the minute details on the meteorite. The mist and the ashes were all in his eyes. The soul heart in his mind kept spinning, and a strange energy enveloped his body. How wonderful! Lin Feng felt a wave of comfort in his body and mind. It was as if he was bathing in this starry sky, and his body had completely merged with it. Faintly, he seemed to have sensed something. It was as though there was a mysterious energy being poured into his mind, pressuring and filling it. However, there was also a foreign feeling. His spiritual heart continued to rotate, and its speed gradually increased. The feeling also became increasingly intense. What is it? What is it? Lin Feng muttered to himself as he looked at the starry sky before him. If it was a normal breakthrough, a titled martial god would indeed be bestowed with origin energy. However, in the process of dragonization, it could only be considered as a breakthrough. The meaning was completely different. It was precisely because there were gains and losses. Abilities could not be bestowed. One could only rely on comprehension. 3 days, 6 days, 10 days. Time slowly passed by. However, to Lin Feng, who was immersed in comprehension, perhaps only a moment had passed. It was as though he was in a dream. He only felt that it was the beginning, but he suddenly realized that he had already woken up. However, to Lin Feng, this was only the beginning of the dream. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In the 5-colored tunnel, in the fiery red tunnel that represented the origin of fire, a short-haired man seemed to have woken up from a dream. His eyes regained their brightness, and he looked at his hands in disbelief. In an instant, a powerful origin energy was emitted. Boom! In front of him, a ball of blazing fire spread out, forming a fire-shaped demonic beast. It was 3 meters tall and 6 meters long. It bared its teeth, and its thin and small body was inconspicuous compared to the behemoth horde leader. However, its body was emitting balls of fire, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. In terms of strength, it was definitely superior to any behemoth horde leader. It's a success. Chi Lai's eyes lit up, and he muttered, "Ability? It's actually a summoning ability." A voice sounded in his ear, and the corner of Chi Lai's mouth rose slightly. The fiery red tunnel in front of him seemed to have reached the end, and a fiery red door suddenly opened. Chi Lai stepped lightly, and immediately left the 5-colored tunnel. Where'd he go? Where is Lin Feng? Ziluan's eyes were filled with a cold and terrifying aura. Her beautiful face had changed because of hatred, and the sinister color was filled with malice. In a battle a month ago, Ziluan was very clear that Lin Feng did not die. However, she did not know where he had escaped to. She searched everywhere, but there was no news of Lin Feng. She could only return to Firmament City and wait for him, but she still did not find anything. Lin Feng seemed to have disappeared from the world. Coward, he actually hid. Ziluan gritted her teeth in hatred. The Qianwu continent was so big. If Lin Feng really wanted to hide and avoid the battle, what could she do to Lin Feng? Just Patian City alone was not something she could barge into. What? That bastard rolled out of the training base? Fire God's eyes were burning with anger. Yes, Lin Feng participated in the supernova competition. Qi Yin nodded, and Lin Feng's strength in the supernova competition appeared in his mind. It was indeed amazing. This was especially true when the aperture acupoints exploded at the end, which left him deeply shocked. Where is he now? Fire God clenched his fists, and a powerful fire origin energy was emitted. The surging killing intent could not be suppressed at all. Qi Yin smiled indifferently. A month ago, after winning the title of Strongest Emperor Wu, Lin Feng went to the Dragon Transformation Ancient Ruins. What? Fire God's eyes widened. Qi Yin shrugged. Who asked you to go into seclusion for more than a month? Do you want Lin Feng to wait for you? Fire God's face fell when he heard this. Like a deflated balloon, He gritted his teeth and said, "It's too easy for him to die in the dragon transformation ancient ruins." Qi Yin chuckled. "Are you so sure that he won't be able to pass?" "So what if he passes?" Fire God scoffed. "A newly promoted title martial god is nothing." With that, Fire God raised his thumb and pointed at himself, saying proudly, "During this seclusion, I, Fire God, broke through the 4th level and stepped into the 5th level. Then Lin Feng, even if he becomes a titled martial god, he will only be at the 1st or 2nd level. Killing him is like playing with a toy." The wind and clouds were surging, and the Tianwu continent was gradually falling into panic. Paper can't wrap fire. Not to mention this fire was 100 times, 1,000 times more terrifying than imagined. 1 or 2 king-level magical beasts were nothing. Not to mention the 2 strongest humans, the Moon Emperor and the Commander. Even a Left Marshal, Thunderbolt, Blue Hunter, and other titled martial gods could easily deal with them. After all, there were more than 150 titled martial gods in the Tianwu continent. However, as time passed, more and more king-level magical beasts invaded, and the situation became extremely chaotic. The Tianwu continent had 4 great royal cities and 16 great counties. The territory was extremely vast, and beast riots broke out everywhere. Not to mention the king-level magical beasts. Just the giant beast leader alone was enough to make people's hands go soft. There were so many magical beasts in the endless wilderness, far more than human warriors by 1,000 times. "Lin Feng, where are you hiding?" Ziluan bit her lips until they turned purple and her eyes revealed incomparable malevolence. A bone-chilling, killing intent spread out from her body. That feeling of extreme resentment hidden in her heart that could not be vented was extremely sullen and painful. "I don't believe that at this time. Hunter will still protect your family." Ziluan's eyes shot out a sharp light. "Kill them. Let's see if you can endure it." Ziluan's body rushed out, and her eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Floating in the air, Ziluan's cold eyes looked down at Lin Feng's house. A strange green light flashed in her hand, and she drew her sword with a clang. She said coldly, "Blame yourselves for being Lin Feng's family. Use your lives to pay for his debt." Boom! The green light flashed fiercely, and the crescent-shaped sword chi with the power of the wood origin whistled through the air. The terrifying energy was enough to turn an independent villa into ashes. Ziluan's face revealed a trace of pleasure, but suddenly, a white mist appeared out of thin air and completely enveloped the crescent-shaped sword chi. In a split second, a white figure appeared behind the water curtain with a calm expression. With a light wave of his right hand, the mist retracted and flicked, and the crescent-shaped sword chi was actually reflected back. Moreover, the speed was even faster. Ziluan's expression changed instantly, and she dodged in a panic, avoiding her own sword chi. Suddenly, a powerful power of the water origin wrapped around her, and the surging mist surrounded her, emitting an aggressive aura. The white-clothed man in front of her was quietly looking at her. "You're Ziluan?" Fong Ning's eyes flickered. "You." Ziluan's expression was shocked. The white-clothed man in front of her seemed ordinary, but just his aura was much stronger than hers. "Go back. This is not a place you should be." Fong Ning's voice was very calm. Ziluan clenched her teeth, and her face turned green. However, she also understood that it would be difficult for her to gain any advantage today. The white-clothed man in front of her was too powerful. "Oomph." Ziluan's eyes emitted a cold light, and soon after, a green light flashed, and she flew away. Watching Ziluan leave, an indifferent smile flashed across Fong Ning's calm face. A gentleman doesn't take away another's love. Lin Feng, this hatred, wait for you to take revenge. In the void passage, Lin Feng floated in the starry sky, and along with the rotation of his soul heart, something seemed to be constantly pouring into his mind, filling it up. This unfamiliar feeling was extremely familiar, as if it existed in his memory. His soul heart was constantly rotating, and a strange energy wrapped around his body. Looking at the meteorites flying past in front of him, Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of expression, like the stars in the sky. In a split second, boom, his mind quivered, and Lin Feng seemed to be struck by lightning, and in an instant he was enlightened, like a flood breaking a dam, like a thin needle piercing a balloon. Lin Feng instantly understood. Pa. He opened his eyes, which emitted a bright light. So this is my ability, Lin Feng said with a faint smile. To be continued. I'm a little late. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 182. You have passed the second stage of the slaughtering field trial. A familiar voice rang in his ears. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and a layer of hazy mist appeared in his eyes. It was like the mysterious energy aura that was filled with mystery. It seems that it is not a bad thing to believe in this place. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile as he touched his chest gently. At this moment, the void tunnel in front of him gradually turned into nothingness. The endless tunnel shrunk in an instant, and the surrounding light also became dim. A large door opened in front of him, and Lin Feng stepped out. A white light flickered in front of him. Instantly, Lin Feng came to an independent space. It was so big that he couldn't see the end of it. The third stage of the slaughtering field trial, the final duel. A faint voice rang out. Lin Feng was stunned. The final duel? It sounds like it's the last test. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The duelists have one day to rest and get familiar with their own strength. The one who emerges victorious in the end will be the sole victor of this trial. Lin Feng revealed a faint smile when he heard the familiar voice. He had just become a titled martial god and needed time to get used to his powerful strength. The final duel should be the two martial artists who entered the five-colored tunnel, right? Lin Feng was very clear. I can't be careless. Although their strength was far inferior to mine before becoming a titled martial god, now we are probably standing on the same starting line. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. However, if I can't even defeat them, how can I defeat Zilwan? He smiled indifferently. That defeat, that humiliation, Lin Feng remembered it clearly. After passing the final stage, I will be able to leave this place and return to the Tianwu continent. Lin Feng's eyes flickered with a bright light. The haziness in his eyes became even more illusory and mysterious. Lin Feng's expression instantly turned cold. Just you wait, Zilwan. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Zilwan's expression was crazy. She had failed to kill Lin Feng. Killing his family was a failure among failures. Why did I crawl back from hell and become a titled martial god? Zilwan laughed at herself and clenched her teeth. For Jiao to avenge Jiao. But what have I done now? How can I face Jiao? Zilwan's eyes were filled with guilt. She clenched her fists tightly, and her nails dug deep into her flesh. Biting her lips until they bled, Zilwan suddenly laughed like a madman. Die, all of you die. Lin Feng, I'll definitely drag you down with me. I'll drag your entire family down with me. Zilwan's eyes were filled with viciousness. As if she had made up her mind, she turned on her communicator, found that familiar number, and dialed it. Stinking brat, have you really decided? Deluan asked with her eyes wide open. Didn't I tell you before we went to the steel ancient ruins? Little Sword replied lazily. After Fong Ning, Lin Feng, Dugu Feng, and the others left, Deluan and Little Sword finally erupted. They stood out in the selection competition at the end of the month and entered the steel ancient ruins. At the end of April, the two of them returned safe and sound. In fact, the death rate in the steel ancient ruins was extremely low. Stubborn, Deluan pinched her nose. Little Sword smiled indifferently. After returning from the steel ancient ruins, he had already become a high-level Emperor Wu. And now he was going to walk the path that Fong Ning and Lin Feng had walked before, enter the Dragon-Eyes ancient ruins. You don't understand the world of men. Little Sword smiled. Behind his smile hid an extremely proud heart. Fong Ning dared to walk, Lin Feng dared to walk, and he, Little Sword, dared to walk as well. Who says I don't understand? The Lu Wan'er snorted. Worry flashed in her eyes. However, Lin Feng has been in the Dragonized ancient ruins for almost 2 months. There's an 80% to 90% chance that he died in there. It's really too dangerous. The Lu Wan'er bit her lips. Her expression was very complicated. Lin Feng won't die. Little Sword shook his head expressionlessly. But the Lu Wan'er still wanted to say something. No buts, Little Sword said firmly. His eyes were bright. Lin Feng will definitely come out of the Dragonized ancient ruins safe and sound. And so will I. After saying that, Little Sword turned and left. His body that seemed to be made of steel also had a heart of steel. The Lu Wan'er was a little stunned. After a long time, she sighed. Little Sword has changed. City in the sky. Blue, is there still no news about Lin Feng? Moon Emperor asked. No, he might. Blue Hunter hesitated. Might be dead. Moon Emperor smiled. Then, she shook her head and said, Sister, he's the only martial artist you guided. How could he die so easily? Then, the Moon Queen's lips curled into a meaningful smile. She opened another file and started to think carefully. I hope so. Blue Hunter nodded. He was not too concerned. No matter how powerful Lin Feng was, he would at most break through to the titled martial god realm by rank 1 or 2. He would not be of much help to Blue Hunter in a short period of time. What they should be concerned about now was the level 9 beast rampage. How should humans deal with it? Blue, gather all the information about the 100 Falls ancient ruins for me. Moon Emperor lifted her head and said seriously, don't miss any details. 100 Falls? Blue Hunter's eyes widened. Moon Emperor, go. Moon Emperor said calmly. Yes. At the Dragonized ancient ruins. Lin Feng was carefully analyzing his strength. He was not careless at all. Even a lion would use all its strength to hunt a rabbit, let alone a titled martial god who was at the same level as him. Since I'm compatible with the heaven and earth origin energy, a titled martial god can use origin energy to attack. It's a qualitative leap in a martial artist's strength, Lin Feng murmured to himself. Before becoming a titled martial god, a celestial spirit master had the advantage. However, once one became a titled martial god, their advantage would be reduced. Although I'm not compatible with the origin energy, I'm still a titled martial god. Lin Feng nodded. I also have the ability to control. Although I lack the origin energy, I have the soul heart to make up for it. Moreover, due to the great increase in my soul energy, the power, control, and sensitivity of my primordial fire have increased by a lot. Besides my ability, Lin Feng suddenly smiled. Not even half a point off. In another space, Qilai was also cultivating. However, unlike Lin Feng, he had been cultivating for a long time. More than a month ago, Qilai had finished comprehending his ability and came out of the Rainbow Channel. But now, as he cultivated in this unique environment, Qilai even felt that his fire heart had completed a complete transformation, and his strength had increased greatly. I should have broken through from stage 1 to stage 2 now. Qilai's eyes sparkled. It's a pity. If only I had a little more time. Qilai shook his head. Suddenly, he smiled confidently. However, it's enough. The final battle of the 3rd stage will be mine. In an instant, a surging flame appeared in his hand. It had a deep orange luster. Unlike Lin Feng's primordial fire, there was a strange energy in this flame. It was as if it had a life of its own. The origin energy of fire. In the underground palace, Martial Emperor, I've brought Zealwan. The Cakravarti king cupped his hands. He was dressed in a golden dragon robe. Zealwan looked ahead with a gloomy expression. It was a man in the darkness. He was tall and slender and gave off a bone-chilling feeling. She could not see his face clearly. However, she could see his bright eyes. They were like stars in the darkness. It was terrifying. The man in front of her was the mysterious leader of the Hunters' Alliance. Martial Emperor. Congratulations, Martial Emperor. Your strength has reached a new level. The Cakravarti king said happily. You may leave, Cakravarti. The Martial Emperor's voice was hoarse. However, there was a hint of oppression in his calm voice. Yes. The Chakravarti king bowed and left. As the Chakravarti king left, the palace became even quieter and emptier. The oppressive atmosphere was suffocating. Ziawan's face was slightly pale. She could vaguely feel that the martial emperor's aura had completely suppressed her. "You are Ziawan?" The martial emperor's deep voice sounded. "Yes, martial emperor." Ziawan did not dare to show any disrespect. As a member of the Hunters Alliance, the difference in level was deeply ingrained. "I already know about your matter." The martial emperor's voice was slightly gentler. "Join the Hunters Alliance and become the queen of Ziawan. The Hunters Alliance will give you the best treatment, and I will fulfill one of your conditions." Hearing the last sentence, Ziawan immediately raised her head. Her eyes were bright and filled with a strong sense of viciousness. "I want to kill Lin Feng." Ziawan's voice sounded as if it came from an ice cellar. "Lin Feng has entered the dragon transformation realm for close to 2 months. I'm afraid he is doomed." The martial emperor said slowly. Lin Feng had entered the dragon transformation, ancient ruins? Ziawan's eyes widened. She did not expect that after searching the entire Tianwu continent, Lin Feng had actually hidden in the dragon transformation, ancient ruins. Close to 2 months? Ziawan's face twitched. She was pleasantly surprised. Indeed, entering the dragon transformation realm for close to 2 months meant that he was doomed. However, Ziawan clenched her fists. Even if Lin Feng died in the dragon transformation realm, she would not be able to vent the resentment in her heart. She wanted to kill Lin Feng with her own hands to avenge Jiao. "Are there any other conditions?" The martial emperor calmly asked. "Yes." Ziawan clenched her teeth. Her eyes revealed a horrifying killing intent. "I want to slaughter Lin Feng's entire family, not leaving a single one alive." "All right, I will fulfill your request." The martial emperor's voice was still calm. However, there was a domineering aura in it. High above, controlling life and death. Dragon transformation, ancient ruins. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Ding! A light ring sounded beside his ear. Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, a bright white light shone in front of him. The door of light slowly opened. The final battle began. Second update, don't worry. The main character will definitely have origin energy at _at. If you like this work, you are welcome to Kamachidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 183. It was a space of light with no end in sight. 2 figures wrapped in halos looked at each other from afar. It was a very fair battle. There was no advantage in terrain and no interference from humans. There was only a clash of strength, a final duel. This was not an illusory space. It was a real battle of life and death. There would only be one victor. It's him. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Fire Spirit Master, Qi Lai. From the beginning, Lin Feng knew that he would be his greatest enemy. As expected, the other warrior will probably be eliminated in the second round. Choice. Lin Feng muttered to himself. There was nothing to be concerned about. In this dragonization, ancient ruins, no, in this killing field, only the strongest could stand at the end. Dang, like the sound of a war drum. In an instant, it made people's blood boil. The halos exploded with a boom. Lin Feng and Qi Lai almost instantly burst into flames. A battle between fire spirit masters. Bang! A dark orange color suddenly appeared. Qi Lai's face was filled with confidence. However, in an instant his face turned green. The emerald green light in front of him was dazzling. 2 fireballs flew toward him like a gust of wind, like arrows shuttling back and forth. How is this possible? Qi Lai's forehead was sweating, and his eyes were wide open. He was completely stunned. His elemental fire sensitivity was completely defeated. A shocking gap. No. Qi Lai looked at the terrifying emerald green flame in front of him, and his legs almost went soft from fear. The dark orange elemental fire was 2 whole levels lower than the emerald green one. As a fire spirit master, Qilai was very clear about the levels of fire. Even a difference of one level was enough to kill. Moreover, with the fire elemental energy, the difference was multiplied. Fire spirit summon. Qilai gritted his teeth, but his reaction was fast. In an instant, the fire elemental energy gathered. In front of him, a magical beast formed completely by fire appeared, roaring. However, its existence was merely to serve as a scapegoat. Boom, 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 boom. The two emerald green fireballs exploded in an instant, and the pitiful fire spirit beast suffered a tragic calamity. At this moment, Qilai just dodged the two terrifying fireballs when two bright and terrifying emerald green lights flashed in front of him. What a terrifying sensitivity of the origin fire. Qilai gritted his teeth. Since they were both firefighters and they relied on guerrilla warfare to fight, the sensitivity to primordial fire was definitely an important bargaining chip in determining victory or defeat. If it was on the level of Emperor Wu, I'm afraid it would be troublesome, but now, Qilai's eyes were cold. The power of control revolved around him as he changed the direction of his body. Suddenly, a terrifying spear intent descended in front of him. In the void, a white dragon roared loudly. Soaring dragon. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Wave after wave of attacks came like a tidal wave. From a brief contact, just now, Lin Feng could tell that with his current strength as a firefighter, it would take him a lot of effort to win. And the simplest method was close combat. It's time to try it. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth rose indifferently. On the tip of the spear, the emerald green flames were like maggots attached to bones, causing people's hearts to turn cold. Adhering fire. Isn't he a fire spirit master? Qilai only wanted a curse in his heart. He had never seen such an abnormal fire spirit master. Why did he choose to be a firefighter instead of a firefighter? What was even more terrifying was that his spear art was not inferior to any other martial artist. I can dodge it. Qilai gritted his teeth with a stern expression. At this moment, the spear tip descended with a cold green light. The power of control. Qilai's body wanted to move in an almost impossible manner. It seemed that he could dodge it, but that was just looking. Suddenly, deceleration space. Lin Feng's eyes lit up instantly as his soul heart spun rapidly. A terrifying power descended like the might of the heavens. Lin Feng's force became incomparably shocking, causing Qilai's heart to be shocked and his body to tremble violently. His body became inexplicably stiff, as if he could not take a step forward. What's going on, my speed? Qilai's eyes widened. He was scared out of his wits. No. Qilai seemed to be screaming. His distorted and pale face was instantly engulfed. Qi. The ice soul soaring dragon spear pierced through Qilai's heart. The emerald green flames made a terrifying sizzling sound and instantly spread all over Qilai's body. A terrifying aura and power were completely released. Lin Feng stood with his spear. The starlight in his eyes was dazzling like the stars in the sky. He was so high that no one dared to look at him directly. So this is the power of a titled martial god. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Qilai died tragically. The light gradually disappeared. Lin Feng felt as if he had returned in an instant. The familiar stone walls around him were ancient and pitch black. However, his heart gradually calmed down. Finally, he was back. Cloud Sun City. 3 figures streaked across the sky and did not attract anyone's attention. In the sky, unless one had a flying treasure, the one who appeared would definitely be a titled martial god. Zielwan, you have a lot of hatred. The Chakravarti king laughed. That's right. Shwetu's family. TSK. Women are indeed the most vicious. The one who spoke was a bald man. There was a faint smile on his face. He was standing on a flying treasure and wearing a sky blue scale armor. He was full of combat power. He was King Enigma of the Assassin Alliance. The two of them were sent to assist Zielwan in completing the mission. They deserved to die. Zielwan's eyes flashed as she gritted her teeth. Zielwan's hatred for Lin Feng was completely transferred to his family. When a person's heart was blinded by hatred, they would do anything. Are the three of us enough? Zilwan frowned. After 2 consecutive failures, she had a bad premonition. How many people do we need to deal with a newly promoted titled martial god? King Enigma smiled indifferently. Although we don't know Fong Ning's strength, he became a titled martial god later than you. No matter how good his talent is, he can only reach rank 2. Even if he is as powerful as the commander and broke through to rank 3. So what? How much has he mastered in the body movement realm? How much has he mastered in the application of abilities? King Enigma said disdainfully. With the power of the Assassin Alliance, it was too easy to investigate a person. Is there really only one person? Zilwan frowned. The first time she lost, she did not even see what her opponent looked like. Just a mere illusory technique was enough to cause her to fall into a dead end. Such strength was simply comparable to a martial monarch. Yes, there's only one person. The Chakravarti king said indifferently. Shou is in a difficult situation now. Fong Ning must have been invited by Lin Feng through his personal connections. Zilwan, just kill them. Leave Fong Ning to me and the Chakravarti king. King Enigma said confidently. Okay. Zilwan nodded. She was very clear about the strength of the 2 helpers in front of her. King Enigma was a rank 2 martial god, while the Chakravarti king was a rank 3 martial god. No matter which one, they could easily defeat her, a rank 1 martial god. Once the 3 titled martial gods joined forces, their fighting strength, it was terrifying. Dragon Eye's Ancient Ruins Dragon Tale. At the entrance of the dark and endless cave, a faint luster flashed. Tap, tap. The light footsteps were steady and natural, as if they were stepping into a person's mind without any ripples. A faint silhouette slowly walked out of the cave. Finally, I'm out. Lin Feng stood in the desolate area, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. He opened his mind's eye naturally, using every inch of his skin to sense the surrounding space. He felt refreshed, but it was a clear feeling that he had never felt before. Every blade of grass, every tree, every water, every mist, even the tiny dust particles in the air seemed to be magnified and could be seen clearly. His soul heart slowly rotated, forming a world of its own. The surrounding space and environment no longer had any secrets. Everything was in his heart. Control. Lin Feng smiled and clenched his fists. Then he opened his eyes, which were as bright as the stars in the sky. Although it's different from the titled martial god that I expected, my strength has also undergone a qualitative leap. Lin Feng muttered softly. Thinking of the deceleration space that he had used to kill Qi Lai, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curve into an indifferent smile. Although it was his first time using it, it was already effective. This ability was simply heaven-defying in battle. However, it consumes quite a bit of soul power. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, not caring too much. The more power it had, the more soul power it consumed. It was very fair. Moreover, in battle, using it once was enough to kill. Just like Qi Lai, who had originally relied on his comprehension of control, although it was very difficult, he was still able to dodge Lin Feng's spear. But in the end, he died miserably because of the deceleration space. I wonder how father, mother, brother, and sister are doing? Lin Feng muttered. In the primordial ruins, all communication devices were cut off. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. With Fong Ning here, they should be fine. Turning on the fluorescent compass, Lin Feng immediately found Fong Ning's communication information and dialed it. Beep, beep, 2 short sounds rang out. Soon, congratulations, Martial God Lin Feng. On the other end of the communication device, Fong Ning's hearty laughter rang out. Without a doubt, Lin Feng had become a titled martial god since he had come out of the Dragonification ancient ruins unscathed. Thank you, Fong Ning. Lin Feng thanked him from the bottom of his heart. Without him, how could he have entered the Dragonized ruins with peace of mind? Having a titled martial god act as a bodyguard for such a long time was indeed an incredible thing. Fong Ning laughed, seeming to be quite happy. But suddenly his laughter stopped abruptly, as if the strings of a piece of music that was being played had suddenly been cut open. Lin Feng jumped. Faintly, he had a bad premonition. Come quickly. The voice was urgent and heavy, and the call was abruptly cut off. Not good. Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. He knew Fong Ning's personality very well. Unless something big happened, he would definitely not act like this. It must be extremely dangerous. Whoosh! Lin Feng gritted his teeth and immediately dashed out. Hang in there, Fong Ning. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 184. Who are you? Standing in the air, Fong Ning's body was surrounded by a layer of spiraling mist. Facing each other in the air, the Chakravarti king and the other two were in stark contrast to Fong Ning. However, other than the Chakravarti king, Enigma II and Zilwan seemed to be slightly inferior to Fong Ning in terms of aura. Rank 3. The Chakravarti king was surprised. There were strong and weak martial artists who broke through to the titled martial god realm. Most of them were at rank 1 or rank 2. It was rare for them to break through to rank 3. There were only 2 people in the Tianwu continent, the commander and the Moon Empress, and it's a special type of ability. The Enigma II king looked serious. The abilities of a titled martial god were divided into 7 types. There were offensive types, defensive types, summoning types, and so on. Each ability had its own strengths and weaknesses. Even summoning types had different strengths and weaknesses. Among the 7 major elements, the special element was undoubtedly one of the most powerful elements. No matter which one it was outstanding. Zilwan's face turned pale. She did not expect this titled martial god who broke through later than her to be so powerful. In comparison, it was obvious who was stronger. The Chakravarti king and the other 2 were sizing up Fong Ning. Fong Ning was also sizing up the 3 of them. His goal was simple: to stall them. Although Fong Ning was strong, he did not think that he could deal with 3 titled martial gods alone. Moreover, one of them was stronger than him. But the Chakravarti king and the Enigma II king were experienced and would not be fooled. They were here to carry out their mission. A black saber appeared in the Enigma II king's hand. The black light made him look like a devil from hell. His eyes lit up, and 3 sharp sword chi, with the origin of earth, attacked Fong Ning. In an instant, following the sword chi, the Enigma II king's speed was as fast as the wind. He was ready to fight. Behind him, the Chakravarti king raised his bow, and a sharp golden light appeared. The 2 of them cooperated well. Why are you still not leaving? The Chakravarti king shouted coldly. Zilwan, who was in a daze, came to her senses. Although Fong Ning was a rank 3 martial god, he was inexperienced. He might not be able to deal with the Enigma II king alone, not to mention the Chakravarti king, one of the 10 palace kings. What was there for her to be afraid of? A trace of viciousness flashed past her eyes, and Zilwan immediately transformed into a meteor that shot straight down. Her target was Lin Feng's family. Since he couldn't kill Lin Feng, then he would use his family's blood to pay tribute to Jiu's death and let him rest in peace. Blood slaughter. Not good. Fong Ning's expression changed slightly. Currently, his situation had become extremely grim. One side had to resist, the other side had to defend, and the most crucial point was Zilwan's side. He had no choice but to save them. His duty was to protect Lin Feng's family. The energy of the origin of water erupted, and a cloud of thick water mist appeared directly in front of him. Fong Ning immediately gave up on the king of Enigma and the king of Chakravarti and attacked Purple Luan directly. The sparkling water mist blocked the 3 sharp sword chi, but it rebounded in an instant. The king of Enigma's expression changed, but he raised the saber in his hand. Pa! Pa! The sword chi was weakened after being bounced back. It hit the scale armor on King Enigma's body, making a clanging sound. At this moment, the black saber slashed through the water mist with a loud boom. Behind him, a golden light suddenly flashed, Fong Ning's hands formed a saber, and the faint water mist surrounded it. In an instant, it clashed with Ziyuan's sword. Pung! Ziyuan was completely at a disadvantage. Her control of her body was not as good as Fong Ning's, and there was a huge gap between their strength. However, she was not alone. A cold golden light appeared silently, and the attack was quite mysterious. The king of Chakravarti had attacked. The timing and angle of his attack were all perfect. The insight of a titled martial god was quite terrifying. Fong Ning's attack was immediately interrupted. He tried to dodge, but Ziyuan's sword was as fast as lightning. Pung! After the violent collision, Fong Ning's chest rose and fell. At this moment, the king of Enigma's terrifying saber appeared behind him. A huge black saber shadow seemed to appear in the void, and a terrifying saber will erupted in an instant. It was far more powerful than Ziyuan's. Water mist. Fong Ning clenched his teeth, and a spiral-shaped water mist suddenly rose. At this moment, the king of Chakravarti's hands flashed with golden light, and a golden arrow flew out rapidly. It was as fast as lightning. Pung! Fong Ning's water mist collided with the king of Enigma's, and instantly there was a violent explosion. The collision of the origin energy caused the surrounding aura to become chaotic. Fong Ning could only feel a terrifying force entering his body. The king of Enigma was also not feeling well. Although he had the advantage in terms of attack, his origin energy was stronger. Fong Ning was indeed stronger than him. However, at the moment when the mist exploded, a golden light arrow pierced through, as if the clouds were breaking apart. Oh no! Fong Ning could feel that there was no way to dodge it. It was too late. Chi! Fong Ning used all his strength to defend himself. Thick water mist condensed in his left hand, and he wanted to resist the golden light arrow. However, he could only reduce part of the force, and the huge thrust completely destroyed his defense. Fong Ning was hit hard, and the golden arrow penetrated 1/3 of his body. Boom! Fong Ning was sent flying, severely injured. Ziyuan's eyes flashed coldly. Seeing that Fong Ning was severely injured, she felt a sense of satisfaction. She no longer had any scruples and attacked Lin Feng's house directly. The green sword aura was ferocious, and Ziyuan's eyes were filled with viciousness. Go to hell! Ziyuan roared. However, boom! An indifferent water mist blocked the sword aura. Although it was unable to rebound, it still blocked Ziyuan's attack. A pale and weak figure with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth stood in front of Lin Feng's house. The white figure was already stained with blood. Although Fong Ning's eyes were lifeless, they were filled with determination. The spiral-shaped white water mist outside his body was extremely dim. It was as if it was a sign that its owner was the same. However, Fong Ning did not back down. Since he had promised Lin Feng, he would do it, even if he had to pay with his life. This was a man's promise. What a stubborn lad. The king of Enigma pressed his chest. He had also suffered a lot from the counterattack. The king of Chakravarti's eyes flashed with admiration, but it was covered by coldness in the blink of an eye, just like Ziyuan's eyes. Kill! The king of Chakravarti's cold, killing intent exploded in an instant. He would never show mercy to his enemies. The king of Enigma and Ziyuan charged towards Fong Ning at almost the same time. The king of Chakravarti's hands formed the shape of a bow, and a golden arrow shot out in all directions. The king of Chakravarti's eyes shone brightly. Since he had made his move, he would not show any mercy. The origin of gold, the offensive type, rhenium gold bow. Fong Ning's face was extremely pale, but he could not afford to back down. He knew clearly that once he backed down, Lin Feng's house behind him would instantly turn into ashes. Water mist. Fong Ning clenched his teeth. In an instant, all his strength poured out. The dim luster of the water mist around him gradually brightened, and the spiral-shaped airflow intensified. At this moment, Ziyuan's sword and the king of Enigma's saber arrived. The combination of the sword and saber essence was extremely powerful. Boom! Boom! There was a violent vibration. Fong Ning was not at a disadvantage, even though he was fighting against two opponents alone. He had unleashed all his strength, and the power of the origin of water was extremely sharp. Water was originally soft, and in terms of defense, Ziluan and the King of Enigma could not do anything to him. However, the real danger was yet to come. The King of Chakravarti's eyes shone brightly. He drew his bow, and a golden arrow shot out. It was silent, and it seemed to pierce through space. It was mysterious and wonderful. The King of Chakravarti's strength was extremely terrifying in terms of attack. Fong Ning's eyes flashed with incomparable stubbornness. The spiral-shaped water mist gathered in front of him, and all his strength was channeled into it. It collided with the golden arrow in the blink of an eye, and there was a loud boom. The golden arrow, with a sharp aura, pierced through the spiral-shaped water mist. Chi! Chi! It pierced straight through, without slowing down. Fong Ning's face was extremely pale. In an instant, the spiral-shaped water mist was completely broken, and the golden arrow was as ferocious as a king-level demonic beast. Boom! The huge impact caused Fong Ning to fly backwards, and he was severely injured again. This time, it was even more serious than the previous time. The King of Enigma and Ziluan arrived almost instantly. Two pairs of vicious eyes were filled with swords and knives, and they attacked Fong Ning. Is it over? Fong Ning thought. His weak body no longer had any strength to resist. However, in an instant, he could feel a shocking aura approaching at a rapid speed. The King of Chakravarti's expression changed instantly, and the King of Enigma's eyes shone in an instant. Fong Ning's mouth curved into a tired smile, and his heart settled. He was finally here. Before he arrived, the fireballs arrived first. Two elemental fireballs emitting a strong emerald green color were launched later, but arrived first. They carried a terrifying aura, and they blasted towards Ziluan and the King of Enigma. The terrifying aura was not inferior to Fong Ning's water mist at all. In terms of attack power, it was superior. Ziluan and the King of Enigma quickly switched from offense to defense. If they insisted on attacking, they would be hit by the elemental fireballs, and even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. Damn it! Lin Feng broke through the air, and when he saw the scene in front of him, he felt as if his heart was brutally cut by a knife. Fong Ning almost died, and he was afraid that he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. He was protecting his family on behalf of him. I'm sorry, Fong Ning, I'm late. Lin Feng clenched his teeth, and the elemental fireball in his hand rose again. Bang! Bang! The emerald green light bloomed in the sky. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with anger, and he blasted out the elemental fireballs as if he had gone mad. One after another, they came. The sensitivity of the elemental fire exceeded the 10th grade, and it made Lin Feng's attack speed extremely terrifying. He did not need any time to prepare, and the strength of his soul heart was far greater than the soul power ball. With just a thought, the elemental fireballs were shot out. And the most important thing was, he did not need to consume the elemental energy. The attack of a tidal martial god was like a move with internal energy, and Lin Feng's attack was purely an explosion of energy, and it was inexhaustible. Boom! Rumble, clusters of fireballs exploded like a natural disaster, and the emerald green flames changed the color of the entire sky. The anger in Lin Feng's heart caused him to explode hysterically, and it was as if a calamity had descended from the heavens. In the sky above the independent villa district of Firmament City, a shocking battle had begun. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 185. Damn it! King Enigma's expression changed. Who is he? King Chakravarti's eyes flashed. At the same time, Ziluan's expression was sinister as she screamed crazily. Lin Feng, I'm going to kill you. Lin Feng, Lin Feng. King Enigma and King Chakravarti had different expressions. So he is Lin Feng. King Chakravarti's emotions were complicated. Lin Feng, this former prey, caused him to suffer heavy losses. Among the hunters in his palace, there was a team that was almost completely annihilated because of Lin Feng. Fortunately, the Purple Wand King had appeared, and it could be said that what he lost on the swings, he gained on the swings. A new martial god who came out of the dragon transformation. King Enigma's eyes were cold, but he was cursing in his heart. How could these new martial gods be stronger than the previous one? Except for Zilwan, a moment of respite was enough. Fong Ning had a faint smile on his face. In his hand, a bright, milky white light flashed. It was a fruit that was filled with the energy of heaven and earth. Its appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. The fruit of life. It was the reward given to Fong Ning by hunting Master Blue. No matter how serious the injury was, as long as he was still breathing, he could be healed instantly after consuming the fruit of life. Damn it! King Chakravarti's expression changed. Instantly, he drew a bow and a golden light flashed. King Chakravarti's eyes were cold as he drew the bowstring. 2 golden arrows shot out, one after the other. There was still time. The absorption of the fruit of life was not as fast as his arrows. King Chakravarti knew that once Fong Ning regained his strength and Lin Feng joined forces, the situation would become very unfavorable. King Chakravarti's counterattack was sharp. He was indeed very experienced. However, now, Fong Ning was no longer alone. Oh no! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He controlled his energy and rushed toward Fong Ning. However, he was still a little slow. The 2 golden arrows were like chains that were about to take his life. They were faster than Lin Feng. The deceleration space could only be used on one spot, but there were 2 golden arrows. Fong Ning was in danger. In an instant, Lin Feng gritted his teeth as the soul heart in his mind began to spin rapidly. He did not only have one trump card. Acupuncture point eruption. Lin Feng suddenly shouted, releasing all of his strength. Lin Feng's body was covered in a fiery red bloody light. In an instant, he turned into a bloody shadow. In an almost impossible situation, he sped up again and took Fong Ning away by a hair's breadth. The chi-chi sound behind his head sent chills down his spine. He dodged it by a hair's breadth. That was close. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. If his reaction had been any slower, he would have had to use his body to block the attack for Fong Ning. Towards Fong Ning, Lin Feng was filled with gratitude, guilt, and incomparably complicated emotions. But 2 words could sum up everything. Brother. Brothers who were willing to sacrifice their lives for each other. At this moment, Fong Ning, who had swallowed the fruit of life, recovered from his injuries in an instant. A surge of water energy covered his entire body. Lin Feng immediately sensed it and reacted quickly, revealing a look of surprise. I'll leave the other 2 to you. Fong Ning's eyes glowed faintly as he looked straight at the Chakravarti King. His injuries were all caused by the Chakravarti King. All right, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, 2 emerald green fireballs ignited in his hands. A monstrous hatred spread out and turned into a murderous intent. If he had come a little later, not only would Fong Ning be dead, but his own family would also be slaughtered. Despicable. Lin Feng's eyes were burning with anger. His family was all he had. His everything. Boom, boom. One after another, the primordial fireballs exploded. With a desolate sound, Lin Feng shot straight towards Zi Luan and the enigmatic Soil King. Due to the eruption of his murderous intent, the heart of soul in his mind spun rapidly. The terrifying aura in his eyes was like a dazzling radiance. Zi Luan and the enigmatic Soil King's faces turned green. The surrounding space seemed to be squeezed. Lin Feng was filled with a terrifying aura. Especially Zi Luan. Her hands and feet were extremely cold and pale. As the weakest, she was more affected than the enigmatic Soil King. Lin Feng's terrifying aura was just like a martial emperor. How is this possible? Zi Luan denied in her heart. However, before she had any time to think, Lin Feng's attack had arrived. The ice soul, soaring dragon spear shone with an emerald green light. Lin Feng's eyes were shining so brightly that no one dared to look straight at him. Under the control of the Force, the enigmatic Soil King and Zil Wan were completely suppressed. No! A green sword radiance surged. Zil Wan gritted her teeth and fought back. However, Lin Feng's terrifying spear intent exploded in an instant. In the void, the white dragon was extremely ferocious. A terrifying aura and pressure descended. Soaring dragon. Lin Feng's spear was like a huge dragon descending to the mortal world, biting at Zil Wan. Huge tree. Zil Wan exerted all her strength. The three huge green trees appeared in a flash, forming an impenetrable defense. Not long ago, Lin Feng had suffered a great loss from this move. But now, in the blink of an eye, this impenetrable defense was destroyed. Bang! A violent explosion sounded. Zil Wan's face turned pale. She did not expect her ability to be reduced to dregs. The gap between their strength. The spear radiance was cold. Lin Feng's attack arrived again, not giving Zil Wan any chance to take a breather. At this moment, the king of mysterious soil made his move. He was waiting for an opportunity to take Lin Feng's life as soon as he made his move. Without a doubt, if Lin Feng's spear pierced through Zil Wan, the enigmatic Soil King saber could also kill Lin Feng. A life for a life. But it was just an if. The enigmatic Soil King's plan failed completely. He did not expect that Lin Feng had such a heaven-defying ability. Space deceleration. In an instant, the enigmatic Soil King's body seemed to be stuck in a swamp. A huge pressure gathered from all directions, reducing his speed by half. Lin Feng, who was close at hand, seemed to be at the edge of the sky, just a little bit away. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. Go to hell. Lin Feng's eyes bloomed with star-like brilliance, completely suppressing Zil Wan. In terms of strength, Zil Wan was not even comparable to Qi Lai. Seeing the emerald green light descending, Zil Wan was completely shocked. She used all her strength to urge the power of the origin of wood. The green sword radiance was strong, but compared to Lin Feng's dazzling emerald green light, it was not at the same level. No. Zil Wan was scared out of her wits. I don't want to die. Zil Wan screamed hysterically. But the gap between their strength was so obvious. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. The emerald green light completely engulfed Zil Wan. Lin Feng's ice soul, soaring dragon spear was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. There was no mercy at all. There was only endless killing intent. She deserved to die. The situation changed from 3 against 2 to 2 against 2. Feng Ning and the Chakravarti King had already exchanged blows. Lin Feng immediately went to the enigmatic Soil King. All of you deserve to die. Lin Feng's face was cold. Thinking about how his family had been threatened time and time again, his murderous intent boiled up uncontrollably. Lin Feng looked at the enigmatic Soil King. The ice soul, soaring dragon spear flashed a cold light, and the emerald green primordial fire lit up instantly. Adhering fire. There was no doubt that the bald man in front of him was his accomplice. Kill. The enigmatic Soil King's expression changed dramatically. Lin Feng had the upper hand in a 2 against 1 battle, let alone a 1 against 1 battle. What was that ability just now? How come I've never heard of it? The enigmatic Soil King's face turned pale. Thinking of the terrifying deceleration space, he felt a lingering fear. If Lin Feng wanted to kill him just now, he was afraid that his outcome would be the same as Zil Wan. In a battle between martial artists, even the slightest change was enough to determine the outcome. The enigmatic Soil King's heart had already lost before the battle. Soaring dragon. Lin Feng's expression was cold. The spear in his hand pierced through the air, and the spear intent completely enveloped the enigmatic Soil King. The form and will fusion had reached perfection. Even among the titled martial gods, it was extremely rare. What a strong spear intent. The enigmatic Soil King clenched his teeth to resist. The black saber that emitted the energy of the Earth origin was at a disadvantage. Although he was a rank 2 martial god, the enigmatic Soil King's origin energy was not much stronger than blazing fire. But Lin Feng's emerald green primordial fire was completely superior to blazing fire. The difference was obvious. The astonishing giant dragon roared in the sky. Lin Feng's spear, with a sharp light in his eyes, came crashing down. Die! Lin Feng shouted angrily. His aura, attack, was filled with killing intent. Wall of Earth. The enigmatic Soil King clenched his teeth. An iron wall formed by the origin of Earth instantly appeared like a cocoon. This was the enigmatic Soil King's ability, defense. Boom! The emerald green primordial fire, for the first time, suffered a strong vibration. The power of the soaring dragon was mixed with the power of the primordial fire, but it was unable to break the wall of Earth. An extremely terrifying defense. Ha! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The enigmatic Soil King laughed, but his smile instantly froze. Lin Feng's left hand, the emerald green primordial fire's color, continued to deepen, and the aura became incomparably terrifying. The primordial fire was different from the origin of fire. As long as the control of the primordial fire was enough, the power of the primordial fire could be infinitely increased. And the control of the primordial fire, a large part of it depended on soul power. Papa! The wall of Earth cracked, just like the dead fish face of the enigmatic Soil King. Escape. But could he escape? Space deceleration. Lin Feng's eyes were like bright stars. His soul heart moved, and instantly his strength exploded. The enigmatic Soil King felt as if he was in a swamp. His aura was already suppressed, and his speed was reduced by half. At this moment, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Without the wall of Earth's defense, the enigmatic Soil King lost his last hope. Behind him, Lin Feng's death god descended. Let's end this. The ice soul, soaring dragon spear flashed with a demonic emerald green light, as if it could burn the heaven and earth. Instantly devour. Boom! A terrifying aura exploded, and the enigmatic Soil King let out a heart-wrenching scream, filled with unwillingness. After completing so many missions, who would have thought that he would die in the end? The ice soul, soaring dragon spear pierced through his heart, and the emerald green primordial fire covered the enigmatic Soil King's body. The terrifying aura even swallowed the scales on his body. Lin Feng's aura was incomparably cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He had just broken through, and the 2 titled martial gods died. Second update. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 186. A deafening explosion sounded like thunder. It was shocking. How is this possible? The Chakravarti King's expression changed. Both Ziluan and Mystery 2 are dead. In his opinion, he had the upper hand in this 2-on-1 battle. Even if he couldn't kill Lin Feng, he wouldn't be killed by him. How terrifying was Lin Feng? The Chakravarti King was shocked. Just as he came to his senses, a green fireball fell from the sky. Lin Feng's attack came at him. Boom, boom, boom. The fireballs seemed to be endless. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. Even though he had killed Ziluan and Mystery 2 King consecutively, the battle wasn't over yet. The Chakravarti King was in a difficult position. He tried to dodge, but he couldn't do anything else. At this moment, a faint smile appeared on Feng Ning's face. The mist in his hand turned into water curtains and surrounded the Chakravarti King tightly. It was as if space had been compressed, and there were very few openings for him to dodge. Oh no! The Chakravarti King was terrified. Feng Ning alone was already difficult to deal with. Now that Lin Feng was here, just as the thought came to his mind, a terrifying aura with a strong killing intent appeared in front of him. What a terrifying aura! Feng Ning's expression froze. Impossible. How can he have the same aura as the Emperor? The Chakravarti King's face turned pale. Even though he didn't want to admit it, the truth was right in front of him. At this moment, the Chakravarti king finally understood how powerful Lin Feng was. Boom! Boom! A green flame rose from Lin Feng's left hand and grew more ferocious. The icy dragon spear in his right hand shone with a cold light and was filled with killing intent. It was extremely difficult for other titled martial gods to control two different types of power at the same time. However, Lin Feng could do it. This was a new move that Lin Feng had learned when he defeated the Earth Rampart. Just like little swords, long and short swords, Lin Feng had two different killing moves that were more powerful when used together. At this moment, the water screen formed by the mist deepened once more and trapped the Chakravarti king within, one controlling, the other attacking. The coordination between Lin Feng and Fang Ning was incomparable. Long tongue. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly, but they were a little less spirited. After using the space deceleration twice in a row, even the powerful soul heart had exhausted its soul force. Even so, it was enough. 2 against 1. The colossal dragon roared and bit towards the Chakravarti king. On the other hand, the Chakravarti king's eyes shone with a crimson light as he displayed his third-order martial god realm strength. With a flick of his hand, the golden arrow of light shot straight out, penetrating the water curtain wall. In a split second, it collided with Lin Feng's spear with a loud bang. The two terrifying attacks violently collided. In a split second, pong, the ice-soul soaring dragon spear couldn't withstand such a powerful force. It was completely shattered. However, at this moment, Lin Feng and Fang Ning's attacks arrived at the same time. Spiral mist, emerald green, primordial fire. With one on the left and one on the right, the Chakravarti king had nowhere to hide. Boom! The shocking explosion was as terrifying as the impact of a meteor. Lin Feng's eyes were sharp and cold. Even though the Chakravarti king was strong, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. However, a golden illusory armor flashed across his body and blocked the fatal attack. Even so, the Chakravarti king was still severely injured. It's an illusory armor. Lin Feng's expression changed. He didn't expect the Chakravarti king to have such a life-saving item. Lin Feng and Fang Ning were sent flying backward. Almost simultaneously, they gathered their power again. Fireballs and water arrows shot out as fast as lightning. However, the Chakravarti king's face was contorted. A blood-red fruit had appeared in his hand, and he swallowed it in one gulp. Pung! A terrifying blood-red aura exploded. Lin Feng's eyes lit up instantly. You two brats. I will return the humiliation you have suffered today tenfold. The Chakravarti king turned into a bloody mist. His mournful voice reverberated in the sky. It was so cold that it seemed to have come from hell. In a split second, he disappeared without a trace. The Chakravarti king had escaped. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. Revenge was a dish best served cold. Lin Feng sighed softly. There was nothing he could do. With his current strength, he couldn't catch up with the Chakravarti king even if he wanted to. Moreover, the cloud shuttle had been lost. The celestial fruit, blood-red centipede. Fang Ning's eyes lit up. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and nodded thoughtfully. The celestial fruit was born from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was more precious than a top-grade spiritual fruit. Thinking about it, the Chakravarti king must have relied on the celestial fruit to escape even though he was severely injured. Well done. Fang Ning smiled faintly and extended his right fist. Thank you. Lin Feng looked at Fang Ning. Their fists collided, and he smiled from the bottom of his heart. If it wasn't for Fang Ning, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Fang Ning smiled. I didn't expect your strength to soar to such an extent after breaking through to the titled martial god level. You killed 2 titled martial gods as soon as you broke through. Even someone as strong as the commander would be so arrogant. Fang Ning looked at Lin Feng with a strange glint in his eyes. He had originally thought that it would be good enough if Lin Feng could hold back the other 2 titled martial gods. He didn't expect Lin Feng to kill the 2 of them so cleanly. This kind of attack was simply unimaginable. It's a pity that one of them escaped. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. If one didn't remove the root of the problem, there would be endless trouble in the future. The last words of the man in the golden dragon robe were deeply imprinted in Lin Feng's mind. His survival skills are too strong. Fong Ning sighed softly. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, he had the illusory armor and the celestial fruit, blood-red centipede. Even if he was in his best condition and could use the exploding aperture acupoints and decelerating space to kill the man in the golden dragon robe, it would be very difficult. However, at least I can kill her. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. To him, Zilwan was the most dangerous person. The person he hated the most was her. This woman was like a lunatic. In order to take revenge for Jiao, she was completely deranged and unreasonable. As he looked over, Lin Feng exclaimed softly, "That is, Hua." With a shift of his body, Lin Feng instantly arrived at the place where Zilwan died. A woman's ring was shining brightly. He immediately picked it up. "Cube ring." Fong Ning's voice sounded indifferently. He bent down and picked up a ring that was similar to the one in Lin Feng's hand. He smiled and said, "There is a universe in the ring. It is a storage-type treasure. These two rings contain all the possessions of a titled martial god." Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He suddenly remembered that his cloud shuttle had been lost that day. Maybe a trace of soul power seeped into the cube ring. In an instant, a light flashed. Cloud shuttle. Lin Feng was extremely happy. Indeed, his cloud shuttle had been taken by Zilwan that day. He didn't expect it to return to him after so many twists and turns. He had regained what he had lost. I wonder what else is there? Lin Feng used his soul power to check the cube ring again. There were many miscellaneous items. Spiritual fruits, books, purple crystal cards. It was as Fong Ning had said. These were all the possessions of a titled martial god. However, to him, they weren't of much use. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A black iron token appeared in his hand. It was extremely heavy in his hand. There were strange symbols and pictures engraved on the black iron token. Lin Feng looked at Fong Ning. He saw that Fong Ning also had a similar token in his hand. Fong Ning shook it at him. Instantly, Lin Feng seemed to understand. "This is the token of the Assassin's Alliance," Fong Ning said indifferently. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. It was obvious that the three people belonged to the Hunter's Alliance. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly as a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Ever since he was still a martial grandmaster, the Hunters' Union had stuck close to him like maggots. Even now, they were still hunting him time and time again like hungry wolves. How could he tolerate this? How could he tolerate this? Assassin's Alliance. Lin Feng muttered to himself and nodded. He would remember this grudge. In the city in the sky. The martial god tablet was a very special existence. Every titled martial god would leave their own mark on the martial god tablet. This was not only a representation of their identity, but also a proof of staying in the city in the sky. More importantly, once a martial artist who left his mark on the martial god tablet died, the mark he left behind would disappear. Whoosh, a clear light flashed on the martial god tablet. The two names engraved at the bottom seemed to have their lives wiped away. They gradually dimmed, disappeared. What? A titled martial god is dead? It's martial god Zilwan and martial god Me Too. Rank 1 and rank 2 martial gods. How did they die? Did they die in the beast tide? 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon everyone knew. 2 titled martial gods had died at once. This was definitely big news. Eastern District, Heavenly Martial Army's territory. Thunderbolt, Green Flood Dragon, go and investigate immediately. The voice was very dignified and unquestionable. However, the left marshal, Thunderbolt, and the right marshal, Green Flood Dragon, were not displeased at all. Instead, they were extremely respectful. Yes, Commander. The two of them bowed and retreated with solemn expressions. The commander was a legendary name. Very few people had seen his true appearance. He was a man filled with a dignified aura. He wore a neat military uniform and gave people the feeling of a pine tree. Just by standing there, he gave off an aura of disdain. One of the two strongest martial artists of the human race. Could it be that the arrival of the calamity is going to be brought forward again? The commander's expression was extremely solemn. Lin Feng, Fong Ning, I will not let you off. The Chakravarti king was like an injured tiger. His face was ferocious, and the intense pain caused him to spasm continuously. Ever since he became one of the 10 Hall Kings of the Alliance of Assassins, he had never suffered such a loss. It was a great humiliation. A dignified stage 3 martial god had actually lost miserably to 2 new martial gods. His 2 companions on the mission had both died. If not for the celestial fruit, he would not have been able to escape death. That Lin Feng is so powerful. The Chakravarti king's eyes shone with a cold light and slight fear. He had just become a titled martial god and already had such strength. How terrifying would he be when he grew up? Most importantly, the enmity between him and Lin Feng had grown. He would definitely be a thorn in his side until he was dead. Report this to the martial king immediately. The Chakravarti king heaved a sigh of relief and pressed on his heavily injured chest. If I don't get rid of him, I will have endless troubles in the future. The Chakravarti king's eyes were cold. Then he disappeared. Third update, everyone, please be anxious. Lin Feng's strength has just begun. Can the origin of fire run away? To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 187. The independent villa area was in a mess. Lin Feng looked around and couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, Fong Ning was there to protect his home. Otherwise, the consequences would be unthinkable. The Assassin Alliance won't let this go. Lin Feng's expression was serious. I'm afraid there will be trouble in the future. He wasn't afraid, but what about his family? From this assassination attempt, it could be seen that those people were simply inhumane. Why don't you move to the heaven-breaking city? Fong Ning smiled. Huh? Lin Feng was startled, and his eyes lit up. The heaven-breaking city was one of the 4 great cities of the Sky Martial Continent. There were 4 great counties and 200 cities. Every city was the same size as the heaven-breaking city and was under the jurisdiction of the Hunter Organization. The heaven-breaking city was the place where the members of the Hunter Organization gathered. Although only Emperor Wu and above can enter the heaven-breaking city. But Fong Ning looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng, you are now a titled martial god. As one of the top existences in the Sky Martial Continent, you naturally enjoy special privileges. Good. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. If his family could enter the heaven-breaking city, he would be able to relax. Unless the beast horde completely broke out, heaven-breaking city, as the residence of the hunters, was like an impenetrable fortress. Who would dare to break in? Moreover, he was now an official member of the Hunter Organization. As the saying goes, fallen leaves return to their roots. The heaven-breaking city belonged to the 5 Great Sects Alliance and belonged to 2 different forces. Let's go, Fong Ning. Lin Feng pointed at his home. Okay. Fong Ning smiled and nodded. They looked at each other and smiled. After a battle, the friendship between the 2 was completely established. Only after going through fire and water together could they be true brothers. Mother, I'm back. Lin Feng entered the house and was startled. Everywhere he looked, the servants and maidservants were all trembling as they stood at the side, and their expressions were filled with terror. Lin Feng suddenly understood. Obviously, the battle outside had frightened them. But it was no wonder. Not to mention them. Even ordinary warriors would be shocked. After all, that was a battle between titled martial gods. A showdown between the peak powers of the Sky Martial Continent. Fenger, are you all right? Lin Wanqing looked extremely nervous, but when she saw Lin Feng's smiling face, she immediately let out a long sigh of relief. I'm fine, Mother. Lin Feng looked around and didn't see his brother Lin Yun and sister Lin Shuier. He asked curiously, where did Yun and Shui go? Yun'er is in class. Shui is learning from her master. Lin Wanqing said, they don't know that your big brother has come back. He left for nearly 2 months without any news. Lin Wanqing's voice was filled with concern. Lin Wanqing was indeed very worried. 2 months? Lin Feng himself was also taken aback. He did not expect that he would spend so much time in the process of transforming into a dragon. He could not help but look at Feng Ning. When he saw the look in Feng Ning's eyes, he immediately understood. Time flies. Lin Feng frowned. After introducing Feng Ning to his mother, Lin Wanqing was very happy. It was rare for a guest to come to the house. Coupled with Lin Feng's return, Lin Wanqing immediately went to the kitchen to prepare the dishes. To her, this was already the happiest thing in the world. Knock, knock. Lin Feng gently knocked on the door. Come in. The voice was as calm as usual. After pushing open the door and entering, Lin Feng looked at his father. Those eyes that were as deep as a black hole still gave off a terrifying feeling. However, it was not as terrifying as before. It was like a tiger without claws and fangs. With the increase of his strength and the transformation of his soul, Lin Feng's senses had increased by more than 1 level. The stronger he was, the more he could feel how powerful and mysterious his father was. Lin Feng knew very well that the story behind his father was definitely not ordinary. Father, Lin Feng called out softly, his eyes emitting a burning light, I have already become a titled martial god. Previously, when the Douling world was mentioned, his father had set a goal for himself. First, to become a titled martial god. And now he had achieved it. Lin Xiaotian gently shook his head. His expression was calm and indifferent. Feng, you are not considered a titled martial god yet. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide and was stunned. Looking at Lin Feng, Lin Xiaotian said indifferently, in the Douling world, people like you are called advanced soul practitioner apprentice. And the titled martial god outside is called advanced soul practitioner apprentice. Lin Xiaotian said slowly, when the soul seed transforms and condenses into a soul heart, one becomes a soul practitioner. When the physique senses the origin energy of heaven and earth and condenses into a heart of origin, one becomes a soul practitioner. After pausing, Lin Xiaotian said casually, in fact, most of the titled martial gods in the Tianwu continent are advanced soul practitioner apprentice. The titled martial god outside? Lin Feng knew that his father was referring to Feng Ning. He was extremely shocked. Lin Feng did not expect that, according to his father, he was only advanced soul practitioner apprentice. Fenger, do you still remember what I told you? Lin Xiaotian said indifferently. Humans focus on different aspects of cultivation. They are divided into sky martial artist and sky god. And no matter which path you take, you must condense a soul heart and a heart of origin. Neither can be missing. Lin Feng nodded. His father had once told him that the so-called titled martial god in the Tianwu continent was actually a sky martial artist, and he was still short of condensing a heart of origin to become a sky martial artist. No wonder the other titled martial gods' transformation originates from the body in the Dantian. And my transformation is in the mind. Lin Feng came to a realization and finally understood. Just like Feng Ning, who was a soul practitioner, and he was a soul practitioner. Of course it was different. Feng, since your soul heart has been condensed, you can start cultivating the 4th to 6th pages of the mystery of soul. Lin Xiaotian said slowly. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and his heart suddenly thumped. He had already memorized the first 3 pages of the mystery of soul, but he had been limited by his strength and could not flip to the 4th page. I wonder what's next. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. The content of the first 3 pages was already quite impressive. The mystery of soul was a large part of the reason why his strength could improve by leaps and bounds. Obviously, this seemed to be a book with levels. Only when his strength had broken through to a certain level could he read the contents of this level. Just like weapons, Only when one had the strength of a certain level could he use a weapon of this level. Correspondingly, otherwise, let alone unleashing the power of the weapon, he might not even be able to hold it. Being able to cultivate the mystery of soul again undoubtedly eased Lin Feng's depressed mood slightly. Although he had not become a real titled martial god, the increase in his strength was real and not fake at all. It should not be difficult for my physique to comprehend the origin energy of heaven and earth and condense the heart of origin. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. After the Dragonization Ancient Ruins trial, my physical fitness has already surpassed the peak of the Emperor Wu. As for my soul power, there is no need to talk about it. What's left? Only compatibility. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. As a fire spirit master, it shouldn't be difficult to be compatible with the origin energy of fire, right? It should. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head as he walked towards the hall. Cloud Sun City was currently in an uproar. Such a big thing happened in the Independent Villa area, and it quickly spread from 1 to 10, 10 to 100. I heard that someone came to seek revenge on Lin Feng. Really? Hasn't Lin Feng already become the Emperor Wu? Who will be so bold? Stupid. Even if it's the Emperor Wu, there are strong and weak people in strength. In the hearts of ordinary warriors, the Emperor Wu was already a superior existence. When the Beast Riot first started, the Scorching Sun sect only lost a junior Emperor Wu who was born in Cloud Sun City, Gale Sword Wu Ning, and they held a grand mourning ceremony in Cloud Sun City. The whole city mourned for him, and a titled martial god was an unimaginable big shot in the hearts of warriors, let alone ordinary people. If Ziluan and the King of Mysterious Oil had not died in the hands of Lin Feng and were burned to ashes by the origin fire, these two corpses would have been enough to turn Cloud Sun City upside down. No one would have thought that such an earth-shattering battle would happen in such a secluded independent villa area. There was one more guest in the house, so they naturally had to treat him well. Knowing that their big brother had returned, Lin Yin and Shui immediately left everything behind and rushed over to have a happy reunion. The family was harmonious and filled with a warm atmosphere. During this time, there was laughter, and Fong Ning revealed a rare look of nostalgia. Very happy, Lin Feng. Fong Ning smiled. Yes, they're all I have. Lin Feng looked at his younger brother and sister who were playing around and revealed a gratified smile. Where's your family, Fong Ning? Fong Ning shook his head, and a faint sadness flashed across his eyes. They're no longer here. Lin Feng's expression changed, and he said softly, I'm sorry. It's nothing, it's all in the past. A light flashed across Fong Ning's eyes, and the corner of his mouth curved indifferently. 2 months ago, I've already ended everything. They would never have thought that the 18-year-old playboy who had yet to become a martial artist would become a titled martial god today. The hatred in my heart, the moment I killed my enemy, was buried in the earth with his blood. Lin Feng sighed softly. He did not expect Fong Ning to have such a past. 2 months ago was the day he parted ways with Fong Ning in Sky City. So the private matter Fong Ning was talking about was revenge. Lin Feng came to a realization, but did not ask further. It was best not to mention this kind of thing if he could. Just as Fong Ning said, let it be buried deep in the earth and become a thing of the past. Don't let my tragedy repeat itself on you. Fong Ning looked at Lin Feng and said seriously, a son wants to raise his parents, but his parents are no longer here. Many things can be regretted after you've lost them. Yes. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He could empathize with him. He would do his best to protect his family, because he was already a real man. After dinner, Lin Feng briefly told his mother about the moving house, and then left with Fong Ning. In the Douling world, he might only be an advanced apprentice soul practitioner, but in the Tianwu continent, he was already a true, titled martial god. His goal, Sky City. First update, Xiao Xiao has not been in good spirits these few days. She's always sitting in a daze, unable to calm down or write. Speaking of which, how many days does a real man have every month? If there are no accidents, I'll definitely be riding through the night today. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 188. In the sky above the Tianwu continent, there was a huge city floating in the air. The city in the sky, also known as Martial God City, floated among the clouds as if it was floating. It was like a dreamlike fairyland. The flowers, grass, and trees were colorful, and the beautiful buildings had their own unique characteristics. In the Tianwu continent, this was a city filled with legends. At this moment, two more figures appeared in the city in the sky. This time, I'm really standing here, said Lin Feng emotionally. The first time he came, he entered Zi Yao's residence. The second time, he came as the representative of the hunters to participate in the supernova competition. But this time, he was truly standing here as a titled martial god. Fong Ning smiled and pointed at a huge black rock that was 1,000 meters tall and 100 meters wide. Go and test it. Test. Lin Feng was startled. Looking over, the huge black rock pierced through the clouds. It was unique. That day, Hunting Leader Blue had told him that the martial god tablet recorded the name of every titled martial god. It was a symbol of status and status. But where did the test come from? Eastern District, Tianwu Army's territory. A huge screen flashed with the martial god tablet. Lin Feng and Fong Ning's figures appeared in front of the screen. Oh, another new face? The one who spoke was a skinny man with a hooked nose. His vulture-like eyes were extremely sharp. What left the deepest impression was the azure dragon mark that stretched from the left side of his face to the right side of his forehead. It was ferocious. He was the Tianwu Army's right marshal who was as famous as Thunderbolt. Azure Dragon. At this moment, a slender man slowly walked in. His resolute face had a carefree expression. It was the left marshal, Thunderbolt. Seeing Azure Dragon's gaze on the screen, Thunderbolt turned his head and exclaimed, Lin Feng, you know Thunderbolt? Azure Dragon raised his head, his eyes shining. Forgetful. Isn't he the strongest Emperor Wu who defeated Feng Lei? Thunderbolt smiled, his eyes sparkling. I didn't expect him to not die and come out of the dragonification. Oh, Azure Dragon said casually. I wonder how many stages there are. There should be 2 levels. Thunderbolt nodded. After all, he had witnessed Lin Feng's strength with his own eyes. However, the two of them obviously didn't care too much. As a stage 7 martial god, no matter how strong Lin Feng was, he wouldn't be able to threaten them. West District, Hunter Organization's territory. Moon Empress, Lin Feng has come out of the dragon transformation. Azure's voice was filled with surprise. Oh, the Moon Queen raised her head. The crescent mark on her forehead glowed faintly. She smiled and asked, Where are you now? The Wushan Monument is testing one's strength. Lan's eyes were filled with excitement. Unlike the Heavenly Martial Army, Lin Feng was a member of the Hunters. With every titled martial god, the Hunter Organization's position among the 4 major forces would increase by a notch. At the same time, the southern and northern districts also noticed Lin Feng's appearance. Qi Yin, Fire God, Huang Liang, Laughing Buddha, and the others were all staring at the light screen with sparkling eyes. Lin Feng's reputation was quite high. Not only was he a warrior who had come out of the dragon transformation, but also because he was the former strongest Emperor Wu. The last time Lin Feng came, he had only looked at the Wushan Monument from afar. But this time, he was truly looking at it from a close distance. Close at hand, the huge black stone emitted a strange and bright luster, as if it had a life of its own. Lin Feng stretched out his right hand, and just as he was about to touch it, he suddenly felt a majestic force attacking him. It was a rather powerful source energy of heaven and earth. His right hand slowly retracted. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with curiosity as he looked at Fong Ning. The Wushan Monument can be used to test the martial god's rank. Fong Ning pointed to the front, from shallow to deep. The color of each section of the Wushan Monument is different, representing the 1st to 7th stages of the titled martial god. Oh, Lin Feng nodded in realization. With a light leap, he retreated 100 meters. Lin Feng looked at the Wushan monument, his eyes flashing faintly. Just as Fong Ning said, when he looked at the Wushan monument carefully, there was indeed a slight difference in color from the bottom to the top. There was a gradual change from the grayish-black at the bottom to the black at the top. The titled martial gods are divided into the 1st to 7th stages? Lin Feng thought to himself. When he looked carefully, he saw that most of the titled martial gods had marks in the 1st and 2nd stages, taking up more than half of them. Starting from the 3rd stage, each stage descended in a trapezoidal manner. The higher one went, the fewer titled martial gods there were. But this made sense. But 8 stages? Lin Feng looked at Fong Ning and asked curiously. According to Fong Ning, there should be 7 stages for the titled martial gods from the 1st to 7th stages. The top stage represents the existence that surpasses the martial god realm. Fong Ning's eyes were shining. Following Fong Ning's gaze, Lin Feng looked up at the pitch-black darkness. 2 mighty, titled martial gods stood side by side. They were both reflected in his eyes. Moon Emperor, Commander, the 2 strongest people in the Tianwu continent. Below the Moon Emperor and Commander, Qian, Lan, Lei, Qing, and the other titled martial gods all looked up to them. It was not just a difference of 1 stage, but a difference of 1 level, just like the difference between Emperor Wu and the titled martial gods. That's me. Fong Ning smiled. Lin Feng looked over and saw Fong Ning's name in the 3rd level area. Although his name was near the bottom, it was still rank 3 martial god. Nodding, Lin Feng immediately understood. Obviously, the huge resistance he had felt just now was the key to testing the titled martial god's rank. Lin Feng moved his body slightly and arrived in front of the Wushan monument. His eyes flickered. He stretched out his right hand again, boom, as if he had touched some kind of restriction. An incomparably huge power whizzed over. It covered the sky and covered the earth. The soul heart in his mind spun violently. The soul force carried an invisible power and spread out. It was exactly the same as the power in the Void Bridge. A sharp light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. Instantly, the pressure coming from all directions was negated. Why? His body floated up. Lin Feng's right hand was like a sharp arrow, instantly passing through the 1st stage area. In the blink of an eye, he also passed through the 2nd stage area. As expected, Fong Ning smiled slightly. He knew Lin Feng's strength the best. To be able to kill 2 titled martial gods single-handedly, Lin Feng's martial god rank was at least rank 3. Blue Hunter said excitedly. Ziyao, who was beside him, had a smile on her face. She supported her chin with her hand, and her eyes shone brightly. But obviously, it was not the end. The pressure is getting stronger. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. In one breath, he had reached the 3rd stage area. His body finally felt a little pressure, but it was just a little. It only slowed down his ascension by a little. Slowing him down was not the same as stopping him. Bang! As if breaking through a layer of barrier, Lin Feng passed through. The 4th stage area. Oh my God! Thunderbolt froze on the spot. That's impossible. The green flood dragon frowned. Its eagle eyes were cold and sharp. At this moment, as Lin Feng ascended to the 4th stage area, the entire Sky City was filled with astonishment. Even Fong Ning, who was behind Lin Feng, was amazed. Even the strongest ones, like the Commander and the Moon Empress, who had just become titled martial gods, were only at the 3rd stage. It was unbelievable. Ziyao and the Moon Empress's eyes shone. The crescent moon marks on their foreheads were very similar. They shone brightly. The 2 of them were not as excited as Blue Hunter because they could see Lin Feng had not reached his limit. It kept climbing. The higher he went, the greater the pressure. Lin Feng gradually felt tired. His body seemed to be numb and slow. Limit? Not yet. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. The terrifying aura continued to erode his consciousness. However, Lin Feng had already experienced this kind of tempering too many times. His soul heart spun rapidly. The vast and powerful soul power kept resisting the increasing pressure. Lin Feng's eyes shone. A color barrier seemed to appear in front of him, blocking him like a bottleneck. However, break. Lin Feng used the last of his strength. Boom! Lin Feng had stepped into the 5th stage area. The entire Sky City was silent. All the martial gods in front of the light screen were stunned. No one expected that Lin Feng's strength would be so terrifying. 5th stage martial god. There were many in the Sky martial continent, but there was no one who had just broken through from Emperor Wu to the 5th stage. Not to mention now, there was no one in the history of the Sky martial continent. Without a doubt, Lin Feng had opened a new era. In the depths of the endless wilderness, it was a region close to the ocean. Reefs, sand, and waves churned. The abundant spirit energy made everything here full of vitality. There were thousands of meters tall trees, as many as the hairs on an ox. The so-called king-level magical beasts could be seen resting everywhere. There were even groups of huge dragons napping on the beach, snoring like thunder. Suddenly, in the sky above the beach, a green lightning bolt descended from the sky with a rumbling sound. In an instant, the surrounding magical beasts were all startled awake. Suddenly, a lightning-like crack produced a sizzling sound, as if a black hole had appeared. The huge suction force produced a whistling sound. In an instant, the surrounding magical beasts let out frightened roars and wanted to escape. The huge dragon roared towards the sky and soared into the sky. However, sizzle, sizzle, the terrifying sound was like an electric current pouring down, lightning intertwining. An endless suction force came from the black hole. It was an energy that could not be resisted at all. Tons of seawater, tens of thousands of meters tall trees, king-level magical beasts, and even the huge dragon that had already soared into the sky were all sucked into the black hole in an instant. Mournful roars rose and fell one after another. However, under the terrifying power of the heavens, all resistance was futile. All of his strength was nothing more than the struggle of an ant. Hua! Everything was quiet. The suction force gradually weakened. In the black hole, a round ball emitting a fiery red light slowly appeared. Bang! It fell heavily into the sea. In an instant, sizzle, the surrounding seawater was all evaporated and burned to nothing. Within a radius of 10 miles, there was nothing. Episode 9 end. Second update, there is a third update. Xiao Xiao stayed up all night to write. Everyone, read it tomorrow. This habit of not being able to save drafts really needs to be changed. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qi Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 189. On the Martial God Monument, a new title was added, Lin Feng. The rank 5 region, which was already an area with few people, had a new member. This was a peak that many martial gods could not reach even after decades of effort. However, Lin Feng, a newly advanced martial god, easily reached it. High and mighty, as dazzling as the stars. Boom! The entire Sky City was in an uproar. Lin Feng's heaven-blessed rise came without warning, but it was extremely shocking. They had just finished another round of the Round Table Conference, and the martial gods were feeling mentally and physically exhausted due to the increasing frequency of beast riots. But who would have thought? This is too shocking. After holding it in for a long time, Blue Hunter said with a complicated expression, "Little sister, you have good taste." The Moon Empress smiled and glanced at Zi Yao. A faint smile appeared on Zi Yao's picturesque face. She didn't say anything, as if this was completely within her expectations. Eastern region, Heavenly Martial Army's territory. What a pity. After the shock, Thunderbolt couldn't help but sigh. Indeed, but it's a pity that he's not from our Heavenly Martial Army. The Green Flood Dragon's eyes were cold. Thunderbolt glanced at the Green Flood Dragon and shook his head. That's not what I meant when I said it was a pity. If Lin Feng was born 10 years earlier, perhaps. The Laughing Buddha sighed. His usually smiling face looked a little lonely. He can become another heaven breaker martial god, Qi Yin said slowly. No, Lin Feng will be stronger than the heaven breaker martial god. The one who spoke was a black-haired woman. She was dressed in simple and elegant clothes, but she had a noble and charming temperament. It was difficult to associate her with a titled martial god, but she was a true rank 7 martial god. She was also the second in command of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce, the vice president, divine fortune teller Tianqing. That's too much, Huang Meng snorted. Even if Lin Feng is talented, it's still a big problem whether he can surpass the titled martial god level. Because of the supernova competition, Huang Meng didn't like Lin Feng. Naturally, he couldn't bear to see him do well. Clearly, there was more than one person who didn't like him. You mean Lin Feng? A brat who hasn't even grown out his hair, is not even fit to carry the shoes of the heaven breaker martial god. The fire god's face was full of disdain, and his eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. Who would have thought that not only would Lin Feng come out unscathed from the dragon transformation, he would even advance to 5th order martial god realm. One had to know he had bitterly cultivated for 100 years and had only just broken through the tier 4 bottleneck. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. A cold light shot out from Fire God's eyes. Although they were both stage 5 martial gods, Fire God was confident that he could defeat Lin Feng. After decades of tempering at the martial god level, in terms of combat strength and experience, he was definitely several streets ahead of Lin Feng. Childish. Tianqing's voice was faint, but no one knew whether she was referring to Fire Deity or Huang Liang. Both of their faces turned pale immediately. The two of you added up to 200 years old, yet you still have the cheek to say such heartless words. Tianqing sneered, but she was not afraid at all. Fire Deity and Huang Liang's faces turned livid. They did not expect that Tianqing would scold both of them at the same time, but they had no choice but to swallow their words. This woman was not to be trifled with. What a pity. Tianqing shook her head. He was born at the wrong time. If only he had enough time. Tianqing's eyes flickered with a faint light, but she did not continue speaking, but everyone understood what she meant. But the Grade 9 Beast Tide had destroyed an ancient civilization that was 1,000 times or 100 times stronger than the Sky Martial Continent. Could it really be solved by manpower alone? You monster! Fang Ning shook his head speechlessly. Lin Feng smiled. Looking at his name hanging high in the Stage 5 area, he was quite satisfied. As Fang Ning said, the Wushan tablet did not necessarily represent the true strength of the Wushan, but at the very least, it was an assessment of his strength. It's just that the power of the soul cannot be used directly, and I can only rely on the primordial fire to attack. My strength should be between Stage 3 and Stage 4. Lin Feng nodded. He was not deceived by the fake in front of him. Lin Feng knew very well how strong he was. But with the burst of acupuncture points and the deceleration space, I have a high chance of winning even against a Stage 5 warrior, Lin Feng muttered to himself. Especially the deceleration space. It was extremely effective in unexpected situations. After leaving the Wushan tablet, Lin Feng and Fang Ning stepped into the Western District to meet the Moon Empress. Lin Feng, you scared me just now. Blue Hunter patted Lin Feng's shoulder with a smile. Such an intimate action made Lin Feng feel flattered, but he immediately felt relieved. With the growth of his strength, his status would naturally rise as well. Scared me? Lin Feng quickly understood and smiled. And you, Fang Ning? Blue Hunter was speechless. What's so important that you even rejected the Moon Empress summons? It's my business. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he spoke first. Fang Ning did it to help me, Blue Hunter frowned and nodded. Come, let's go in and talk. Lin Feng could not help but be amazed when he saw the Moon Empress for the first time. The Moon Empress looked similar to Zi Yao, but she lacked Zi Yao's carefree spirit and had a more mature temperament. Her beautiful face showed no signs of age, and her snow-white skin was as delicate as a newborn baby's. Her bright eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky. Every move, Every frown and every smile was filled with the beauty of a woman, making one's heart beat faster. If Ziyao was a flower that had just bloomed, then the Moon Empress was a flower that had completely bloomed. When the two of them stood together, it was like a peony and a daffodil blooming at the same time. Their beauty was suffocating, and the world paled in comparison. It was too beautiful. I see. The Moon Empress nodded after listening to Lin Feng's explanation. They've crossed the line. Ziyao frowned slightly, and a faint light flashed through her eyes. These scums. Blue Hunter's expression was stern. He slammed the table angrily, leaving a palm print on it. They've tried to harm my Hunter's members time and time again, and they're even despicable enough to harm my family. Their behavior is outrageous. It was like two men fighting, and after losing, they went to seek revenge from the other party's child and parents. Was it not funny? I killed 2 of the 3 assassins. Lin Feng took out the black iron token and handed it over. The last one escaped. The Moon Empress took it and weighed it in her hand. She said seriously, "This is indeed the Assassin's Alliance's identity token. Only martial gods are worthy of it." So the 2 title martial gods were killed by you, Lin Feng. Blue Hunter came to a realization. No wonder they couldn't find anything. Everyone, including the Heavenly Martial Army, thought that the disaster was coming early. What are the characteristics of the escaped assassin? The Moon Empress's eyes lit up. Lin Feng paused for a moment, then understood. Male, about 1.8 meters tall, compatible with metal origin. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed as he recalled. Rank 3 martial god, attack type ability, Feng Ning said solemnly. The Moon Empress nodded softly. She thought for a moment and said, "Blue, here." Blue Hunter cupped his hands. Immediately investigate all rank 2 and rank 3 martial gods who control metal origin. Inform the commander while you're at it. The Moon Empress paused and opened her red lips. If you want to resist the outside, you must first suppress the inside. It's indeed difficult to remove the thorn in the Assassin's Alliance, but at the very least, we can't let it penetrate any deeper. Yes, Moon Empress. Blue Hunter nodded. Lin Feng nodded, his eyes sparkling. The Moon Empress's move was indeed brilliant. Not only did she have a clear crime to warn the others and intimidate the Assassin's Alliance, but she could also calm him down and help him vent his anger. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. After all, there weren't many titled martial gods. They were divided into 5 categories based on their compatibility with origin energy, and there were only about 30 of them in each category. Among them, rank 2 and rank 3 martial gods accounted for half of them, which was a total of 15. Coupled with their height and gender, they could basically determine who the culprit was. All right, Lin Feng clenched his fist, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. However, he didn't care about such details. It was already good enough that the Moon Empress stood up for him. When cutting grass, he had to remove the roots. In the underground palace, what happened? Why did Mystery Earth and Purple Wand die? The Martial Emperor's voice was extremely low. It's Lin Feng, the Martial Emperor. The Chakravarti king looked at the terrifying figure in the dark and felt a chill in his heart. He gritted his teeth and cupped his hands. The new martial god, Lin Feng, is too powerful. In just a few moments, he killed Mystery Earth and Purple Wand King by himself. He even joined forces with Feng Ning to injure me. There was an inexplicable pressure in the empty palace. The Chakravarti king's face was pale. Although the power of the celestial fruit, blood-red centipede, was shocking, the side effects were not small. The martial emperor turned around and looked at the Chakravarti king with cold eyes. You used blood-red centipede? Yes, martial emperor. The Chakravarti king nodded. Get up. After all, no one could have predicted such a sudden situation. The martial emperor's voice was majestic but cold. The Assassin's Alliance, 10 King's Palace, has 24 titled martial gods. I didn't expect 2 of them to die at once. The loss was very heavy. The Chakravarti king stood up and looked very serious. Martial Emperor Lin Feng arrogantly said that he would kill every assassin in the Assassin's Alliance. If we don't get rid of him, he will become a big threat in the future. I understand. The martial emperor said coldly. We will discuss this later. You may leave. Yes, martial emperor. The Chakravarti king was unwilling to accept this and left. In the empty palace, the martial emperor's eyes were as bright as the stars. He shook his head. How could he not know what the Chakravarti king was thinking? It was inevitable for people to be selfish, and Lin Feng had to be eliminated. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Soon, this news would spread, and there would be criticism within the Assassin's Alliance. The entire alliance had been slapped in the face. Yet, as a martial emperor, he did not even utter a single word. What kind of logic was this? However, rank 5 martial god? The martial emperor's eyes sparkled. What kind of strength does Lin Feng have? It's daybreak. Xiao Xiao fulfilled her promise and fainted from exhaustion. Speaking of which, it's Xiao Xiao's wedding anniversary today. Hee, March 14th. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 190. Don't worry, there will be results in 3 days. The Moon Empress smiled. Thank you, Moon Empress. Lin Feng nodded sincerely. It was unrealistic to rely on the hunter to eradicate the entire League of Assassins. Now that the beast tide was raging, how could the Moon Queen stir up internal strife for no reason? For him, this result was good enough. In the hunt, there are 3 hunting masters and 8 hunting protectors. The Moon Empress's eyes lit up. You already know Blue and Ziyao. The other hunting master is called Yu and is in charge of the entire hunter organization. He is not in Sky City. Lin Feng nodded and looked at Ziyao. He didn't expect that she was also one of the 3 hunting masters. Her purple dress made her look extremely beautiful. She was like a blooming violet flower, and she was no less beautiful than the Moon Empress. Looking at the figure that had captivated his soul, Lin Feng smiled faintly. Ziyao seemed to feel Lin Feng's gaze and revealed a charming smile. She winked her eyes playfully as if saying, You're finally here. Yes, I'm here. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with confidence. He was no longer so far away from Ziyao. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Feng thoughtfully and glanced at Ziyao. She smiled and said, According to the rules, martial gods who have reached the 4th level and above will become hunting protectors. Lin Feng, are you willing to become a hunting protector? 3 hunting masters and 8 hunting protectors. They were the core members of the hunt, the top of the pyramid of the hunter organization. Yes, Lin Feng said without hesitation. Without the hunt, he wouldn't be where he was today. As a man, he should be considerate. Moreover, it was good to have more power in his hands. The 8 hunting protectors are in charge of the 4 counties. It's too troublesome to transfer them. Lin Feng, you have just reached the martial god realm. You should focus on increasing your strength. The Moon Empress's eyes flickered. She pondered for a while and nodded to Ziyao. How about this, Lin Feng? You'll be the vice city lord of Patian City and assist Blue in managing the city and the training base. Do you have any objections? Deputy City Lord, managing the training base? Lin Feng smiled and nodded. No problem. Being in charge of a large county, there were a lot of complicated things to do. Therefore, he might as well just be a deputy. He could also cultivate in peace. I didn't expect that I would have to go back right after I left the training base. Lin Feng smiled and felt that the world was strange. However, when he returned to the training base this time, his identity was completely different. As for the manpower, I can't let you become a commander without an army. The Moon Emperor smiled and said, A hunting group is usually composed of 3 to 4 people. How about this? Fang Ning will join your group. As for the other members, I will discuss with Ziyao about it. Lin Feng looked at Fang Ning and couldn't help but smile. That was a good thing. Okay, Lin Feng nodded. He didn't care too much about this. Things like power and influence were meaningless. Only strength mattered. The more strength one had, the more power one could obtain. In addition, I will arrange for you to enter the ancient ruins of the heavenly treasure in the near future. The Moon Emperor opened her red lips and pondered for a moment. Then, she muttered to herself, "However, this month's quota seems to be full. The earliest will be next month." Xiao, who was beside him, also nodded, revealing a helpless expression. Ancient ruins of the heavenly treasure? Lin Feng listened to the unfamiliar name and pondered. Yes, you can enter and obtain the heavenly treasure crystal. The Moon Emperor smiled and gently shook her snow-white wrist. Then, two bright rays of light flew over. One flew towards Lin Feng, and the other flew towards Fong Ning. "Huh!" Lin Feng reached out to catch it. Hua! When he touched it, he felt a huge and abundant amount of heaven and earth energy. Lin Feng instantly revealed a look of shock. Opening his hand, Lin Feng looked at his hand. It was a pure white and flawless, irregular crystal, emitting a dazzling luster. Heavenly treasure crystal? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He suddenly remembered that he seemed to have found something similar in Ziluan's cube ring. With a thought, Lin Feng's right hand instantly had an identical color and luster, an octagonal crystal. It was very small as a fingernail. It was completely unnoticeable. This is the heavenly treasure point that titled martial gods call it. The Moon Emperor smiled. Any heavenly treasure crystal is made up of countless heavenly treasure points. In Sky City, the currency of titled martial gods is heavenly treasure points. Lin Feng nodded. The last time he entered Sky City, he had heard Hunting Master Blue mention it. In the martial god auction house, all the treasures and rare things could only be purchased with heavenly treasure points. The heavenly martial coin was only the currency of those below the martial god level. These two heavenly treasure crystals are both 10 heavenly treasure points. The Moon Emperor said softly, "Go buy some necessities. The gap between titled martial gods isn't too big. Sometimes a treasure is enough to make up for the gap. Of course, treasures of this level are not sold in the martial god auction house." Lin Feng smiled faintly as he understood. Who would sell such a heaven-defying treasure? He didn't even have time to use it. Any other questions? The Moon Emperor's eyes flashed. "No," Lin Feng and Fong Ning replied. The Moon Emperor nodded and glanced at Xiao. "I'll leave the rest to you, sister." "Okay," Xiao replied softly. She looked at Lin Feng and Fong Ning and smiled. "Let's go. This is my residence?" Lin Feng looked around curiously. Fong Ning's residence was already shocking enough, but now it seemed that his residence was even better. The air was filled with a refreshing fragrance. The flowers and plants were pleasant. It was as if this was a garden. Simple colors, elegant architecture, lofts, and many light screens. The most eye-catching thing was the mansion that was 10,000 meters long and wide. It exuded a domineering aura. "Not bad," Lin Feng said. It was an eye-opener. Compared to this, the independent villa in Cloud Sun City was not worth mentioning. It was like the difference between a sapling and a towering tree. It was huge. That's right. There are only about 100 titled martial gods in Sky City. Lin Feng nodded in realization. The area of Sky City was comparable to the area of a county. It wouldn't be crowded even if hundreds of millions or even billions of people lived there. Now, with such a huge area, how could it not be a big difference when it was divided from billions of people to hundreds of people? This is power. It's the embodiment of strength, Lin Feng said. He knew this very well since he came from the Lin family village. The more strength you had, the more you could get. Beside him, Xiao floated with a smile. She supported her chin with her small hand and stared at Lin Feng with her bright eyes. Lin Feng's strength had improved so quickly that it had far exceeded her expectations. In less than a year, it had been a lifetime. Feeling the different gaze, Lin Feng turned around and looked at Xiao. Looking at the face that he had been dreaming about for so long, Lin Feng felt as if a fire had ignited in his heart. His eyes were filled with passion, just like the purple flame in his heart. Looking at those bright eyes and small red lips, Lin Feng's heart thumped. It was like a piece of art that was carefully carved by the heavens. This was the gaze of man looking at a woman. It was a kind of desire, In an instant, the curiosity on Zi Yao's face disappeared. Feeling Lin Feng's burning gaze, her beautiful face couldn't help but blush. Although she didn't know much about the relationship between men and women, feelings were a natural instinct that the heavens had given to humans. In an instant, Zi Yao's heart beat faster. Her slender and soft fingers moved slightly, but she didn't know where to put them. She lowered her head slightly, not daring to look directly at Lin Feng's burning eyes. Bang! Bang! Her chest rose and fell, and Zi Yao felt her face burning. Lin Feng, Zi Yao's face was so red that it could drip juice. Zi Yao had outstanding talent, and was the younger sister of the Moon Empress. When had she ever experienced such a scene? Lin Feng's heart also beat faster. The scene of him meeting Zi Yao appeared in his mind. From then on, the purple figure in front of him completely occupied a place in his heart. Lin Feng was a very stubborn person, and it was the same when it came to feelings. Once he made up his mind, he wouldn't change it. I like Zi Yao. This sentence had become a brand in Lin Feng's heart. His heart would always be clear to himself. This strong feeling had always been suppressed in his heart. Because of his strength, because of his status, Lin Feng had always hidden his feelings deeply. But now, there was no distance between him and Zi Yao anymore. It was as if a huge mountain had collapsed between the two of them. Lin Feng could completely feel Zi Yao's emotions. In his heart, Zi Yao had no other identity. She was only Zi Yao, a woman that he loved deeply. Zi Yao. Lin Feng opened his mouth and suddenly found that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. No matter how strong his mind was, no matter how firm his will was, Lin Feng's palms were sweating. Zi Yao felt as if she was about to melt. Too shy to say anything, Zi Yao covered her red face. In an instant, a fragrant wind swept past, and she actually ran away in a panic. Lin Feng was stunned and didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath and fell helpless. He didn't expect that Zi Yao would run away with a red face before he finished his confession. What did this mean? Was it too fast? Lin Feng could feel that Zi Yao didn't have any feelings for him. Otherwise, she would have already rejected him just now. Even if he didn't know much about the matters between men and women, Zi Yao's expression and reaction, he could really feel it. His chances were very high. Lin Feng smiled. At least it was a good start. Girls were thin-skinned, and Zi Yao was no exception. Thinking about it carefully, he and Zi Yao had known each other for less than a year, and the number of times they met was very few. But he couldn't blame her. Just now, the feelings that he had suppressed for too long exploded. If he really did it again, he might not have the courage to do it again. Let's take it slow. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Lin Feng smiled. No matter what, it was a good thing to completely reveal his feelings to Zi Yao. But to him, the most important thing now was still increasing his strength. I'll go out and have dinner with my wife before coming back and continuing to write my story. If you like this work, you are welcome to come Achidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 191. The Ninth Protector, Lin Feng. Following the Moon Emperor's official announcement, the entire hunt was in an uproar. It was an extremely exciting piece of news. With one more protector, the Hunter organization's power would increase by another step. Although there were many titled Martial Goddess in the Sky Martial Continent, there were only 20% of them above the 4th step. Furthermore, not only had Lin Feng reached the 5th step, he was also a new martial god. Everyone knew that after breaking through to the martial god realm, the increase in strength, the fastest. However, Lin Feng knew his own matters. He was not a stage 5 martial god at all. In fact, he had not even fused with the origin energy of heaven and earth. Western District, Lin Feng's residence. It was comparable to the size of a small city, but there was only one person living in it. What a luxury! However, Lin Feng had the strength and status. My body has long since surpassed the peak of the martial god realm. My soul force has even condensed a soul heart. When will this fusion happen? Lin Feng thought to himself. It would be a lie to say that he was not anxious. After all, only after condensing the Heart of Origin would he be considered a true titled martial god. There was only the last step, the most crucial point. According to what Father said, if I become a true titled martial god, my strength will increase by a huge amount. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Lin Feng had always been pursuing his desire for strength. For a martial artist, increasing one's strength was an instinct, just like how a merchant earned money. To Lin Feng, this was what he relied on to protect his family. There shouldn't be any difficulties with the fusion of a fire spirit master. But why hasn't it happened yet? Could it be that fusion also requires time? Lin Feng nodded as he thought about it. Father didn't mention anything about the fusion. Maybe it really isn't time yet. Pausing for a moment, Lin Feng suddenly smiled. There's no point in being anxious. Instead of guessing pointlessly, it's better to take a look at the 4th page of the Mystery of Souls and see what's so profound about it. He was very curious. A few months ago, he had already read through all 3 pages of the Mystery of Souls. The first 3 pages were like a wedge, describing the existence of the soul. It was as if a painting had drawn the outline of a painting. However, he had yet to see the true content. Only by condensing the soul heart can I read the 4th to 6th pages. Lin Feng's eyes sparkling. As he flipped open the old, grayish-black book cover, the soul heart in his mind began to rotate naturally. It emitted a strange energy that wrapped around his body. Lin Feng stared at the contents of the book, and everything in front of him became clear. Soul of Soul's Heart's Soul Heart. The contents of the first page were clear to Xiao Chun at a glance, completely presented before him. It was no longer the same as before, where he had to surreptitiously flip through the pages and read word by word with great difficulty. Indeed, the soul heart formed by the transformation of one's soul power is completely different. Lin Feng smiled and said. He casually flipped to the 2nd page and the 3rd page. In a split second, his right hand seemed to feel a weight and a powerful aura. Lin Feng took a deep breath and flipped open the book. Everything in front of him was bright. In an instant, he felt as though he had entered a fantasy world. The soul heart in his mind spun rapidly, and his heartbeat quickened. This is... Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. He felt as if he was floating in an illusory space. What he saw was an illusory and transparent figure sitting cross-legged. The movements of the illusory figure changed slightly. It seemed uncoordinated, but there was something mysterious about it. The surrounding aura surged over like a tide, forming a spiral shape. It was as if it was being guided by him, constantly seeping in. It was as if they were lining up neatly, entering one by one. It was very strange. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. In an instant, he was completely immersed in it. 1 second, 1 minute, after an unknown period of time. Pa! A slight pain came from his mind, and Lin Feng immediately woke up. He suddenly realized that he was sitting cross-legged, maintaining a strange posture. Was it a dream? Lin Feng shook his head. The memory in his mind was incomparably clear. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a wave of dizziness come over him. It was very familiar. Soul force exhausted? Lin Feng was surprised and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It had been a long time since he had experienced such exhaustion. In just an instant, even the soul heart couldn't help but be exhausted. If it was before, Lin Feng nodded with lingering fear. If he had been too curious and ignored his father's words, the consequences would have been very serious. It was as if he didn't have enough strength to carry more weight than he could carry. Injuries were small, but his life might be in danger. He glanced at the soul heart secret. At this moment, the contents of the 4th page were clearly visible. Half of the page was a picture of a human figure. The picture was exactly the posture of him sitting cross-legged. Staring at this picture, Lin Feng faintly felt a kind of charm, but he couldn't describe it. Oh, Lin Feng muttered, constantly thinking. Suddenly, another wave of pain came from his mind. Lin Feng was dazed and shook his head. What a strange picture. Just a little bit of concentration, and it consumes my soul force. Lin Feng exclaimed at his heart. Soon after, he looked down and saw that the words were similar to a mnemonic chant. It was extremely difficult to pronounce, but when he read it, he felt that his entire body was clear and his mind was clear. I understand. Lin Feng was enlightened. A picture and a mnemonic chant. When combined together, isn't it a secret cultivation manual? Lin Feng smiled faintly. If I'm not wrong, it should be used to cultivate the soul heart. Lin Feng was very clear about the cultivation system. He was currently only an advanced soul practitioner apprentice. There were sky warrior and god realm cultivators above him. He couldn't even imagine the existence of heaven's might. Condensing the soul heart wasn't the end, but it was a starting point. What's wrong, my sister? You came back so absent-minded. The Moon Monarch smiled. No, nothing. Ziyao pursed her lips. The Moon Monarch's wise eyes twinkled. She smiled and said, Really? What happened between you and Lin Feng just now? Ziyao hurriedly shook her head, like a child who had done something wrong. The Moon Monarch smiled. My good sister, do you know how to lie? Ziyao's face instantly flushed red. When she recalled Lin Feng's domineering confession, her heart instantly jumped like a little deer, thumping nonstop. Suddenly, a hand appeared on her chest. It was pure white and flawless like jade. The Moon Monarch blinked. Your heart is beating very fast. Big sister, Ziyao spoke angrily, and her face that was already completely red became even more shy, causing her to seem extremely charming. Ha! The Moon Monarch smiled and nodded. My good sister has grown up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Ziyao pouted and ran away. Looking at Ziyao's back, the Moon Monarch smiled happily. Then she shook her head and sighed. One day, another day. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Lin Feng didn't step out of the door. He was completely immersed in the cultivation of secrets of souls. Once he immersed himself in it, the stubbornness in Lin Feng's bones burst out completely. He wouldn't give up until he mastered it. So that's how it is. I understand now. The mnemonic chant says to lead from the inside to the outside. It means to control the body and be independent. Then, with the body as the source, lead from the inside to the outside. Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. He changed his posture and his mind became clear. His hands formed a hand seal. His index finger and thumb were close to each other. The angle between the fingers gradually appeared, and he placed them on his heart. The soul heart in his mind kept spinning. Lin Feng used the mnemonic chant and changed his posture. In an instant, the power he controlled spread throughout his body. His body seemed to be separated from the surroundings. His mind's I could sense everything clearly. Be independent. Lin Feng's mind was completely focused. Inside his body, with the soul heart as the source, a strange and powerful airflow spread throughout his body, forming a big cycle. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes opened with a pong sound. A shocking aura of heaven and earth energy surged from all directions. Yes, this is the feeling. Lin Feng's mind moved. His hands changed their postures again. The soul power in his mind was like a magnet, attracting the energy of heaven and earth. In an instant, it spread throughout his body and formed a spiral shape, enveloping Lin Feng completely. Hua, hua. The energy continued to flow into his body, spreading to his limbs and meridians. In an instant, it formed a torrent. The strange energy continued to change, finally turning into a formless energy that entered his mind. One cycle, followed by another. His soul power continued to increase. Compared to the passive growth at the beginning, it had increased by a huge level. From the inside to the outside, the growth of his soul power was extremely shocking. The soul heart seemed to be absorbing enough food and was extremely happy. It was like a pool. Originally, one person was pouring water into it, bit by bit, slowly. But now, this person was calling thousands of people to pour water into the pool. The increase in speed was more than 100 times or 1,000 times. The difference in quantity. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Feng opened his eyes and felt extremely refreshed. The soul heart in his mind was revolving at an extremely fast speed. Although he had only cultivated for a short while, the effect was quite shocking. The fourth page of Mystery of Souls is indeed extraordinary. Lin Feng smiled and was very satisfied. Letting out a long breath, Lin Feng slowly stood up. After solving a big problem that had troubled him for a long time, he felt refreshed. Right? I wonder if there is any news from Hunting Master Blue? Lin Feng's eyes were burning. If this matter was not solved, there would be a knot in his heart. It was as if someone was holding a dagger behind his back, making him unable to eat and unable to sleep. He looked at the fluorescent compass, but there was no news. It should be soon. Lin Feng kept the Mystery of Souls and nodded. He seemed to have thought of something. Right, I haven't been to the Martial God auction house after being here for so long. I think I should buy some necessities for the Martial God. And the fruit of life. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Second update, I'm too old. Xiao Xiao can't handle pulling all-nighters. Third update will be made up tomorrow morning. Please forgive me at _at. If you like this work, you are welcome to Kamachidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 192. The fruit of life was a top-grade spirit fruit. Lin Feng coveted it very much when he was in the training ground. Just as Hunting Master Blue had said, it was a top-grade spirit fruit that could save lives. Its effect was almost comparable to an immortal fruit, but the energy it contained was slightly lacking. When Feng Ning had eaten the fruit of life, he had gone from being severely injured to completely recovering in an instant. It was indeed miraculous. To Lin Feng, the most important function of the fruit of life was the energy of life. I wonder how many heavenly treasure points the fruit of life costs. Lin Feng thought to himself. No matter how expensive it was, he was willing to give it up. As long as it could help his father recover and his legs regrow, it was worth it. A huge building appeared in front of him. It was fan-shaped and towered into clouds. The faint metallic color gave off a sense of extravagance. However, this was the reason why the Martial God auction house had such a high status. It was the most expensive and high-class Martial God auction house. The golden door was luxurious and heavy. The greenish-brown dragon head sculpture roared, giving off a strong sense of oppression. No wonder there are no guards. Lin Feng smiled faintly as he stepped in. Just this strong sense of oppression was not something that a martial artist of Emperor Wu's level could withstand. Tap, tap. Walking in, there was a huge corridor. The surrounding decorations were extremely luxurious. All kinds of jade and pearls were inlaid, giving off a sparkling and translucent light. It was dazzling. Lin Feng looked around curiously. It was an eye-opener. What a huge jade and jade. What a vivid ancient totem painting. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Many of the 10 billion that he had won were such physical objects. The jadeite and jade that were worth hundreds of millions were like ordinary stones here. They were inlaid on the surrounding walls, supporting ancient totem paintings. How much did this cost? Lin Feng shook his head. Indeed, it was too shocking. Martial God Auction House, 11th floor. A few martial artists in formal attire were staring at the light screen. It was not that there were no staff here. In order to maintain order in a place, there had to be people. However, in order to respect the titled martial gods, the management was done in a hidden manner. In fact, every single titled martial god that entered the Martial God Auction House had a detailed record. It's Lin Feng. One of the staff members shouted in surprise. It's really him. I recognize him. Another staff member nodded, his eyes full of reverence. Back then, Lin Feng had left his name in the Stage 5 region of the Martial God Monument, shocking the entire Sky City. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and it had long since become a legend. Quick, quick, informed the vice president. She already told me. Today isn't the end of the month, so there's no auction, Lin Feng murmured. Soon, he stepped into the first floor. The first floor was 100 meters tall, extremely luxurious and boundless. Looking around, he saw huge light screens everywhere, emitting a sparkling and translucent luster. Each light screen displayed a product. Even though the auction was only held at the end of the month, the War God Auction House still had many items for sale on a daily basis. In terms of quality, these items were naturally inferior, but they were clearly priced and cheap, saving the poor a lot of time. If it's really an auction with my wealth, I probably won't be able to buy anything. Lin Feng smiled. Including the 2 heavenly treasure points in Ziyuan Square Ring, he only had 12 heavenly treasure points in total. Necessities were necessities. Lin Feng thought to himself as he walked past the light screens one by one. Under the huge light screen, the items were placed in a transparent glass cover. Beside it, there was a small round light ball that flickered with a clear luster. This should be the place where Feng Ning said to put the heavenly treasure points. Lin Feng realized. The transaction was very simple. If he wanted to buy something, he just had to pay enough heavenly treasure points. If he wanted to sell it, he just had to find an empty light screen, put the treasure in, and set the price. Simple and convenient. Fire Cloud Arts, Stage 2, 2 heavenly treasure points. Lightning Dash Arts, Stage 3, 5 heavenly treasure points. Python Arts, Stage 1, 1 heavenly treasure point. Lin Feng browsed through the light screens one by one. There were many cultivation techniques here, but most of them were Stage 2 or Stage 3. There were also some Stage 4 ones, but there were very few Stage 1 ones. Cultivation techniques were divided into 5 types. Cultivation techniques could guide the energy of heaven and earth and raise the level of the martial god. It has the same effect as the 4th page of Secrets of Souls that I'm cultivating. Lin Feng thought to himself. They all used the body as the source to form a large cycle in the body and absorb the energy of the outside world. The difference between the levels of these cultivation techniques should be the effect of cultivation. Lin Feng stopped in front of a light screen and looked at the Python arts that flashed on the screen. He was curious. Along the way, he saw only Stage 2 and Stage 3 cultivation techniques. He even saw 2 Stage 4 cultivation techniques. However, there was only 1 Stage 1 cultivation technique. Vigorous Python technique. I see. Lin Feng looked at the introduction and nodded. Unlike other cultivation techniques that focused on increasing one's origin energy, the Python arts actually increased one's physical strength. Absorbing the energy of heaven and earth became a bonus. What was even more ridiculous was that the Python arts didn't have any attributes. What did this mean? Regardless of whether it was metal, earth, water, fire, or wood, all of them could be cultivated. But the effect wasn't even half of a Stage 2 cultivation technique. It is indeed useless. Could it be that there are people who cultivate all 5 cultivation techniques? Lin Feng shook his head. Obviously, the effect was minimal. As for increasing one's physical strength, titled martial gods cultivated origin energy. As one's life level increased, using the origin energy to temper the body, the physical strength would naturally increase and the effect would be even better. No wonder it is only Stage 1. Lin Feng smiled. Most importantly, the Python arts could only be cultivated by titled martial gods. I can cultivate it, but what's the use? Lin Feng smiled faintly and continued to walk forward. His body had already reached the peak of Emperor Wu. There wasn't much use in cultivating it. Moreover, if he had the extra time, he might as well cultivate the soul heart and increase his strength. It would be more helpful. Along the way, Lin Feng's horizons were indeed broadened. There were all kinds of divine weapons, illusory armors, and even precious materials from king-level fiend beasts. Everything sold here was rare and precious. There were many first-grade spirit fruits, but top-grade spirit fruits were rare. As for immortal fruits, no one was selling them. There are no fruits of life. Lin Feng shook his head. Although he was disappointed, he wasn't surprised. Top-grade spirit fruits were also divided into grades. Obviously, the fruits of life were of the highest grade and were close to immortal fruits. Ordinary top-grade spirit fruits cost at least 3 heavenly treasure points. The fruits of life should cost 5 heavenly treasure points. Lin Feng thought to himself. Along the way, most of the goods were priced between 1 heavenly treasure point and 5 heavenly treasure points. There were very few that exceeded 5 heavenly treasure points. As for those that exceeded 10 heavenly treasure points, there wasn't a single one. I have illusory armors. Although they're not very good, they're better than this. I can't afford them. Lin Feng shook his head. I don't need the Heart Sutra. The Secret of Souls is enough for now. As for treasures, I should save as much as I can. Lin Feng pondered as he walked. What I should buy now is a suitable long spear and a fire spirit master's weapon. Good steel should be used on the blade. Lin Feng was well aware of his current advantages and disadvantages. His attack power was very strong. His attack power was limited by 2 things: the power of his primordial fire and his spear. After his strength had risen to the titled martial god level, his spear art and primordial fire had risen to the same level. Because titled martial gods had the ability to control, his domineering and invincible fireball had become almost useless when he was at Emperor Wu's level. If he couldn't hit his target, what was the use of his power? Fortunately, my spear art and spear intent have reached the great accomplishment level in the training base. Lin Feng smiled. Otherwise, his current strength wouldn't be so strong. Walking around, Lin Feng glanced at the light screens and made a few soft sounds from time to time. These goods were depicted in great detail on the light screens. Most of the time, he didn't need to see the actual goods to understand the general idea. It was indeed very convenient. Suddenly, Lin Feng caught a glimpse of a fiery red ring. On the ring, a huge coiling dragon was densely covered. Its entire body was emitting intense flames. It was ferocious and domineering. A fire spirit master's weapon. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. What the ring increased was the power of his primordial fire. To him, who was currently focusing on adhering fire, the power of his primordial fire was much more important than the control and sensitivity of his primordial fire. At first glance, he had an indescribable feeling of excitement. His eyes were extremely good. Stepping forward, Lin Feng immediately walked over. However, at this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure under the light screen. He was wearing fiery red clothes and looked like a ball of fire. His entire body was emitting a flame aura that made one's heart palpitate. It's a fire martial god, Lin Feng thought. Could it be that he also has his eyes on this? From what he could see, the fiery red figure was also carefully sizing up the fire dragon ring. Looking at the fiery light in his eyes, it was as if it could be seen. Suddenly, as if sensing Lin Feng's approach, the fiery red figure turned his head. The two of them looked at each other. In an instant, Lin Feng suddenly jumped. He felt an intense sense of danger and terror. The fiery red figure exploded with a powerful primordial fire and roared loudly. Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. He quickly retreated, and his soul heart rotated to the limit. In an instant, 2 emerald green primordial fire whizzed up. An instinctive reaction. His intuition told him that the person in front of him was extremely dangerous. But he didn't seem to know him. Could it be that he is a member of the Assassin Alliance? Lin Feng felt apprehensive. Huff, huff. The fire god breathed heavily. He didn't expect to meet his enemy here. Thinking of the tragic deaths of his treasures in the fire god forbidden ground, the fire god was instantly enraged. His mind was in a mess. In an instant, he threw everything to the back of his mind. There was only one thing in his mind. Kill. Kill Lin Feng. Roar. A huge fire dragon whizzed up. Its aura was extremely terrifying. Die Lin Feng. The fire god's eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. I'm a man of my word. Here's the 3rd update. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 193. What a powerful fire origin. Lin Feng's expression was incomparably solemn. The gigantic fire dragon roared as it rose up. Within the flickering fiery red light, there was a terrifying dark yellow energy. Although in terms of flame intensity, his own emerald green was undoubtedly stronger, the gigantic fire dragon contained origin energy, an absolute difference. This is troublesome. Lin Feng's head turned cold. He never would have thought that he would encounter such a thing in the Sky City. The worst thing was that he had no spear to use. Let's go all out. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and the berserk emerald green origin fire immediately condensed into a fireball. With a thought, the mnemonic chant on the 4th page of the Soul Mystery inexplicably appeared in his mind. Lin Feng was instantly startled, but at this moment, the soul heart was already spinning rapidly, and an incomparably powerful force poured out, forming a spiral image that wrapped around his body. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes lit up like stars, and his aura immediately gained the upper hand. Let's fight. Boom! The gigantic fire dragon roared as it rushed over. Lin Feng instantly felt a cold, killing intent. That fiery red figure seemed to hate him to the bone. However, in an instant, something strange happened. A power that was countless times stronger than the fire dragon suddenly appeared, causing Lin Feng's head to shake. He saw a black-haired woman appear as if she had teleported and actually blocked in front of him. Suddenly, both of his hands formed a seal, and with a powerful origin energy, a dark blue water pillar shot out, blasting towards the fire dragon. Boom! Instantly, the fire dragon dissipated. The fiery red figure retreated a few steps, his body staggered, and his face turned deathly pale. What a powerful force! Lin Feng's eyes flickered. At such a close distance, he could feel that astonishing power, which far surpassed the origin fire. The person who came seemed to have no ill intentions. "Fire God, you have guts." An angry voice sounded in an instant, and the black-haired woman's aura exploded. "Fire God?" Lin Feng frowned. He did not have any impression of it. "Do you know that killing people in Sky City is a capital crime?" The person who came was the vice president of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce, the stage 7 martial god, Tianqing. Vulcan's face was already pale. His personality was irritable and impulsive. Just now, his mind was in a mess. All he wanted to do was to kill Lin Feng, regardless of the consequences. Now that he thought about it, cold sweat immediately flowed down his forehead, and he was terrified. This rule was jointly set by the 4 major forces and the 8 giants of the human race. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Even if he was a stage 5 martial god, he would not be an exception. I hope Vice President can give us a way out. Vulcan gritted his teeth and bowed. Go back and await your punishment. Tianqing's eyes were cold. Although you didn't kill anyone, you have already violated the law. You must be severely punished. Vice President? Vice President of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce? Lin Feng looked at the back of the black-haired woman, deep in thought. Vice President. Vulcan's expression was one of panic. Tianqing's eyes flashed with a strange light as she slowly said, "Since this is your first offense, I will try my best to put in a good word for you and reduce your punishment." "Thank you, Vice President." Vulcan's face was gloomy as he admitted his defeat. With a vicious gaze, he glared at Lin Feng and gnashed his teeth. Vulcan was filled with resentment. His pale face was like a defeated rooster as he turned and left. Lin Feng immediately became vigilant. From the killing intent just now to the expression of Vulcan when he left, it seemed similar. That was hatred towards him to the bone. "I'm sorry that such a thing happened in my jurisdiction." The black-haired woman turned around and revealed an apologetic smile. "It's fine." Lin Feng looked at the woman in front of him. Although she couldn't compare to Ziyao or the Moon Emperor, she had a different kind of temperament. She was mature and capable, revealing a kind of intellectual beauty. She wore simple yet elegant clothes and had long black hair. She looked very gentle. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. No matter how he looked at it, this black-haired woman wasn't a simple person. "Nice to meet you. I'm Tianqing, Vice President of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce." Tianqing smiled and extended her right hand. "Nice to meet you, Lin Feng." When they shook hands, Lin Feng felt a soft aura. It was like the blue water, calming his heart. Tianqing smiled indifferently and looked in the direction of Vulcan's departure. She asked curiously, "How did you offend this old fool?" Although Vulcan is reckless and impulsive, it seems like things aren't that simple. He seems to have a deep grudge against you. I don't know. Lin Feng felt helpless. He didn't know how he had offended Vulcan. He thought that Vulcan was an assassin from the Assassin Alliance. If he really wanted to assassinate him, he would have made preparations. It was very contradictory. Tianqing nodded thoughtfully and then smiled. Forget it. We'll talk about this later. I wonder, Hunter Lin Feng, what do you want to buy at the auction? Hunting Protector? Lin Feng was startled. He immediately knew that his position as the Hunting Protector had been announced. Right? Lin Feng suddenly remembered what Tianqing said. It seemed that the Martial God Auction House was under her jurisdiction. I want to buy the Fruit of Life. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Fruit of Life? Tianqing said softly. Among the top fruits, the Fruit of Life is quite popular. I think there was one a few days ago, but it was already sold. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, to a certain extent, the Fruit of Life was comparable to the immortal fruit if it could allow a dying martial god to recover his full strength in an instant. Lin Feng frowned. Then do we have to wait until the auction at the end of the month? Tianqing shook her head. The Fruit of Life is worth 5 to 7 heavenly treasure points. Even if it's scarce, it won't be more than 10 heavenly treasure points. It's not even the starting price of the auction. Lin Feng was startled. He instantly understood. Tianqing's meaning was clear. The starting price of the auction was 10 heavenly treasure points. And this was only the starting price. No wonder there isn't a single item here that costs more than 10 heavenly treasure points. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. His entire fortune added up to 12 heavenly treasure points. Even if he entered the auction, he would only be able to observe. What did he buy? One word, poverty. Looking at Lin Feng's disappointed expression, Tianqing's hand flashed. Suddenly, a strange fruit the size of a bowl appeared in her hand. The Fruit of Life. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. I happened to pick it the last time I entered the wilderness. Tianqing handed it over with a smile. Hunter Lin Feng seems to be in urgent need. If you don't mind, take it. Her words were tactful and slightly meaningful. Lin Feng hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Then I won't stand on ceremony, Vice President. The hand that gives a rose will have a lingering fragrance. Tianqing smiled faintly. Perhaps one day, this little girl will have something to ask of you. Vice President, you're exaggerating. Lin Feng smiled. Clearly, by accepting this Fruit of Life, it meant that he owed Tianqing a favor. But it was worth it, just like how he owed Qin Ho a favor. If he could do it in the future, returning the favor would be a piece of cake. But now, this Fruit of Life was indeed very valuable. He only had 12 heavenly treasure points. He still needed to buy a weapon and a Fire Spirit Master's weapon. He was quite short on money. If he could save it, he would save it. What happened just now reminded him that he had to equip himself at any time. Only then could he face danger at any time. If not for Tianqing's appearance just now and his lack of a weapon, he would have been in a fierce battle. I want to buy a spear and a fire elemental ring. I wonder if Vice President has any good recommendations? Lin Feng smiled. Anyway, he owed her a favor. It didn't matter how much he owed her. Tianqing smiled and pointed forward. Here, this Thunderfire ring is not bad. It's condensed from the core essence of the king-level demon beast, Thunder, Fire, Demon Dragon. It can increase the power of primordial fire by 2 times. Unfortunately, it can't increase the origin of fire. It's usually priced at 5 to 7 heavenly treasure points. So a fire elemental ring can increase the origin of fire. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. There is a huge difference between increasing the origin of fire and increasing the power of primordial fire. Without a doubt, the former was definitely expensive. However, he had not condensed the heart of origin. It was useless no matter how expensive it was. It was better to buy this simple Thunder Fire ring. The price was also within an acceptable range. Lin Feng moved his body slightly. Immediately, he arrived in front of the Thunderfire Ring's light screen. He focused his gaze. Looking at it up close, it was even more shocking. He felt an inexplicable throbbing of joy. Indeed, it was very eye-catching. This is it. Lin Feng was a decisive person. Since he wanted to buy it, he would not hesitate. He glanced at the price. 5 heavenly treasure points. It seems that the martial god selling it is in a hurry, Tianqing said with a smile. Lin Feng smiled. According to Tianqing, the Thunderfire Ring could be sold for 5 to 7 heavenly treasure points. 5 heavenly treasure points was undoubtedly the lowest price. Lin Feng immediately took out the heavenly treasure crystal and cut it in half. Then, he placed the 5 heavenly treasure points into the small circular ball of light. In an instant, whoosh, a resplendent light flashed, and the originally sealed glass cover opened. This is it. Lin Feng took the Thunderfire Ring and immediately felt an abnormally scorching power on his left middle finger. His strength had increased by another level. North District, the territory of the 5 major sects alliance. Sect Master, save me. Fire God's eyes were filled with panic. What happened, Great Elder? Sect Master Scarlet Mantis frowned and raised his head. Fire God revealed a look of hesitation and shook his head in shock. Sect Master, I'm in trouble. Half an hour later, so that's how it is. The others did not know, but Scarlet Mantis knew very well how deep Fire God's hatred for Lin Feng was. In addition, he was reckless and impulsive, so he could not be blamed. What should we do, Sect Master? Fire God asked nervously. Tianqing said that she will spare you. That's just words. Scarlet Mantis interrupted without hesitation. The rules of Sky City have been set for a long time. They will not make an exception for anyone. Great Elder, you are challenging authority. If you're not severely punished, how can you establish your prestige? Although you did not kill anyone and can be exempted from death, you cannot escape punishment. Then what will happen? Fire God asked in shock. According to the rules, you will be imprisoned in the Endless Sky Prison for 50 years. Scarlet Mantis's words immediately made Fire God's face turn pale. At this time, Scarlet Mantis continued, but because of the beast riot this time, you will be sent to charge and atone for your crimes. This, Fire God's body trembled violently. Death is the only way. Scarlet Mantis's voice was bone-chilling. Fire God shook his head and said in horror, No, no, Sect Master, save me. Scarlet Mantis sighed softly. Great Elder, it's not that I don't want to help you, but this time, Fire God grabbed Scarlet Mantis's hand tightly. Sect Master, you must have a way. There must be a way. Anxiety, nervousness, fear, all of these emotions enveloped Fire God, causing him to be at a loss. At this time, Scarlet Mantis's eyes flashed. He sighed and said helplessly, Great Elder, if you don't want to die, there's only one way left. What is it? Fire God's eyes suddenly widened like a drowning man who caught a piece of wood. Scarlet Mantis stared at Fire God and said solemnly, Join the Assassin's Alliance. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 194. The spear's name is Silverlight. What do you think? Tianqing smiled. Weapons were different from other weapons. Their weight, material, length, width, and even feel were all different. Lin Feng weighed it with one hand and clenched it. Then he shook his head. This was already the 3rd spear. However, it was not suitable. It was not suitable. The importance of a weapon to a warrior was self-evident. It was the same for a titled martial god. Tianqing smiled and did not mind. Let's go and take a look at the golden scale spear. Lin Feng nodded and followed her. The weapons here were dazzling and varied. Basically, they were all unique. Lin Feng looked around. The weapons on the screen of light were impressive and ferocious. All of them made his heart tremble. Just like Bing Shuang's Ice Jade Spear, they seemed to have spirituality. Lin Feng suddenly stopped and looked at the screen of light not far away. He was a little stunned. It was a very familiar feeling. His heart thumped. His first impression was very strange. Lin Feng immediately walked to the right. Tianqing's eyes flashed, and she followed him. It was a pure black spear. The pitch-black color seemed to be filled with a devouring power. There are no patterns on it, but it seemed to have a natural domineering aura. The dragon-killing spear is made of black valiant iron. Its destructive power is very strong, but it's very heavy. Tianqing introduced, reaching out and grasping it. Lin Feng suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Although weapons did not have spirituality, when the spear's intent reached a certain level, the spear user would have an indescribable connection with the spear in his hand. Just like Lin Feng, it was a kind of connection between the heart and the spear. The man and the spear seemed to be fused together. Xiao! Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a bright light as he thrust the spear. Hua! Hua! The dragon-killing spear danced. The pitch-black color formed a huge hole. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng began to dance as if there was no one around. His eyes flickered with a luster as if he was completely immersed in it, as if he was possessed. For some reason, his heartbeat quickened. Just as Tianqing had said, the dragon-slaying spear was extremely heavy, but it had reached its current limit. Chi! Chi! The spear intent was invisible, but the spear moves were tangible. Tianqing's face was filled with astonishment as he skillfully brandished the 18 basic spear moves. What a skillful spear move. What a solid foundation. His spear intent has already reached perfection in the third realm. Tianqing's eyes were dazzling. This Lin Feng is indeed not simple. He has comprehended the spear to such a level at such a young age. With such a solid foundation, he is truly unique. Indeed, Lin Feng's current foundation in spear techniques was already quite good. 10 years of spear practice, continuous tempering in the cultivation space, and heaven-defying comprehension. In the martial heaven continent, no one was stronger than Lin Feng in terms of the spear. No wonder Tianqing was so surprised. Bang! The air vibrated. Lin Feng's spear move landed naturally, and his eyes shone brightly. This is it. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. A thunderfire ring for 5 heavenly treasure points, and a dragon-slaying spear for 6 heavenly treasure points. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng was left with only 1 heavenly treasure point. However, it did not matter as long as he spent it properly. I bought almost everything I need. It won't be too late to buy the rest after we enter the Heavenly Treasure Primordial Ruins next month. Lin Feng smiled, but his pockets were empty. He could not buy anything even if he wanted to. He looked at Tianqing and smiled. I'll have to trouble you today, Vice President. With Tianqing around, he saved a lot of time. At this moment, beep, beep, the fluorescent compass sounded. Looking at the familiar name flashing above, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Blue Hunter. Blue Hunter was back. He brought the news that Lin Feng wanted the most. The rank 3 metal elemental martial god who escaped that day, the masked man in a golden dragon robe, what was his identity? West District, Hunter Organization territory. As soon as Lin Feng entered, he saw that everyone had already arrived. Moon Empress, Blue Hunter, Fong Ning, a golden-haired man, and Ziyao. Looking at Ziyao, Lin Feng smiled slightly. Since he had already revealed his feelings, there was no need to hide anymore. A real man dared to love and hate. Ziyao blushed and lowered her head shyly, not daring to look at Lin Feng. However, Moon Empress glanced at the two of them meaningfully and smiled indifferently. Lin Feng, let's get to know each other. This is Prison. Moon Empress pointed at the golden-haired man and said, Hello, Prison Hunter. Lin Feng nodded respectfully. The golden-haired man kept smiling indifferently, giving off an amiable feeling. As expected, heroes come from the young. Not bad. Prison Hunter laughed. Prison Hunter Master, you flatter me. Lin Feng said modestly. After exchanging greetings, everyone's eyes immediately focused on Blue Hunter. Moon Empress said, Blue, announce the results of the investigation. Lin Feng's expression suddenly froze. If he didn't get rid of the assassin hiding in the depths, he would always feel like he was being stabbed, and his state of mind couldn't calm down. It was like a poisonous snake hiding in a dark corner, seizing the opportunity to fiercely bite him. He couldn't sleep well. He had to be on guard. There are a total of 14 rank 2 and rank 3 martial gods who control the metal origin. Among them, 11 are men, and 6 of them are about 8 meters tall. Blue Hunter said tirelessly. After 3 days of careful verification and investigation, I finally locked on to one person. Blue Hunter's eyes lit up. Gold Glory Sect, Gold Radiance Martial God. Oh, Prison Hunter Master said. Moon Empress's finger moved slightly, and the light screen at the front instantly lit up. Lin Feng's gaze focused. On the screen, a man in a golden martial robe was fighting with a man in white. Is it him? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It's very similar. Fong Ning nodded thoughtfully, his expression also solemn. In fact, he knew more about the Gold Radiance Martial God than Lin Feng. This was a contest in the duel arena 10 years ago. Moon Empress said indifferently, "The one in the golden martial robe is the Gold Radiance Martial God." Lin Feng and Fong Ning's eyes lit up. The more they looked, the more familiar it was. Their feelings wouldn't lie. And at this moment, a golden light lit up in the hands of the Gold Radiance Martial God. In an instant, as if shooting an arrow, the bow was drawn and the string was strung. It was as fast as the wind. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 golden arrows were shot out. It's him. Lin Feng and Fong Ning said almost at the same time. They looked at each other and nodded. The body shape could be changed, but the ability was real. Pa! The light screen faded. Origin of gold, attack type, rhenium gold bow. Moon Empress said indifferently, "When the golden light shines, no one lives under the arrow. Therefore, he is called the Gold Radiance Martial God. He's the only one who has this ability, and there's no one else." Are we going to catch him now? Blue's eyes lit up. It's useless. He won't admit it. Fong Ming shook his head. Without evidence, even I can't break the rules. Moon Empress said slowly. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. I have a way. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused. Ziyao held her chin and looked at Lin Feng curiously. With a smile, Lin Feng immediately took out the black iron token. With this, wouldn't his identity be exposed? The prison hunter master frowned and couldn't help but look at Moon Empress and said hesitantly, "Although it's reasonable to say that we can forcefully search his space ornaments, the Gold Radiance Martial God probably won't carry such a sensitive item with him. If the search fails, I'm afraid." Everyone nodded in agreement. The prison hunter master was right. This kind of token that could expose one's identity was not likely to be carried on him. If they couldn't find anything even after mobilizing so many people, it would be like slapping themselves in the face. It would be too embarrassing. Ziyao pursed her lips and looked at Lin Feng. However, she saw that he was still wearing an indifferent smile. She was instantly curious. Lin Feng shook his head and waved the black iron token. He smiled and said, "He doesn't have it, but don't we?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. They looked at each other. Ziyao giggled like a beautiful violet blooming. Fong Ning's face revealed a smile. The Moon Empress covered her mouth and giggled. She looked charming. The prison hunter master was speechless. "Lin Feng, you're too cunning." Blue Hunter Master laughed. "He can't deny it." Lin Feng looked at Moon Empress and nodded. But this matter needs Moon Empress's approval. The only one who had this right was one of the 2 strongest human beings in front of him, the leader of the hunting, Moon Empress. Seeing everyone's attention, Moon Empress stood up and smiled. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go," Blue Hunter Master said happily. North District, 5 Major Sects Alliance. Impossible. How can Jin Meng be the martial god of the Alliance of Assassins? Huang Liang frowned. As the leader of the 5 Major Sects Alliance and the sect master of the Golden Glorious Sect, Huang Liang was very satisfied with Jin Meng. If it were someone else who dared to question him, he would have been furious. However, the group in front of him was too powerful. The 3 prison hunters were all here, and even Moon Empress was here. Huang Liang's aura was immediately suppressed. After all, Moon Empress was as famous as the commander, the strongest human being. Among the titled martial gods, Moon Empress was the real empress. Could it be that the members of the hunting have wronged him? Moon Empress said calmly, her eyes flashing. No, that's not what I meant. Huang Liang said in a low voice. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Whether it's a misunderstanding or not, let's invite martial god Jin Mang out and confront him. Prison said unhurriedly. Unless he's guilty? Blue Hunter Master chimed in with a smile. Huang Liang sighed softly, but he also understood that today's matter was difficult. Even Moon Empress was here. If he did not even invite her out, it would be disrespectful. He kept cursing Lin Feng in his heart and wanted to beat him up to vent his anger. However, he could only swallow his anger. His aura was not as strong as Jin Mang's. Half an hour later, here it comes. A golden figure slowly walked over. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Although he was wearing an ordinary martial suit and not the majestic golden dragon robe, Lin Feng was 100% sure when he looked into those eyes. His heart, I told him that the martial god who had escaped that day, it's him. Chapter 195. It's them. The Chakravarti king's eyes flashed. He had seen Lin Feng and Fang Ning from afar. These were the 2 enemies who had almost sent him to hell. His wounds were still throbbing with pain. The Chakravarti king wished he could skin them alive and tear their bones apart. However, he could only endure it as the time was not right. However, he didn't expect that these 2 brats would come looking for him, even though he didn't look for trouble with them. Moreover, they came prepared. They had gone too far. Oh my God! The Chakravarti king wasn't surprised to see the blue hunting master and the prison hunting master. However, the Chakravarti king was completely taken aback when he saw the fairy-like beauty. Moon Empress. The name of a person was like the bark of a tree. Even Huang Liang looked up to the Moon Empress, let alone the Chakravarti king. Those who came did not come with good intentions. The Chakravarti king could sense that something bad was about to happen. However, what could they do to him? Greetings, sect leader. The Chakravarti king bowed. Golden Mang, you came at the right time. Huang Liang's expression softened as he nodded. Do you know these 2 little brothers? Huang Liang pointed at Lin Feng and Fang Ning. No. The Chakravarti king was confused. Huang Liang nodded satisfactorily and was about to say something. It's him. It's him. Lin Feng and Fang Ning seemed to have been working together for a long time. The Chakravarti king was shocked while Huang Liang's face turned green. He suppressed his anger and asked, Did you really see him clearly? Very clearly, Fang Ning said calmly. Lin Feng nodded and looked at the Moon Empress. It's him, Moon Empress. Did you hear that, Huang Liang? The Moon Empress said calmly. Huang Liang's expression changed. He looked at the Chakravarti king and frowned. Golden Mang, let me ask you, do you belong to the Assassin Alliance? How is that possible? The Chakravarti king's acting skills were not bad. He was able to portray the situation vividly. He laughed and said, Sect Master, please don't joke around. We can't wait to despise the existence of the Alliance of Assassins. Why would we join them to become assassins? Who doesn't know how to quibble? Fang Ning said coldly. Gold origin, attack type, rhenium golden bow. Lin Feng took a step forward and stared straight at the Chakravarti king. That day it was you. The Chakravarti king was forced to take a step back by the aggressive stare. His expression changed slightly. I have no quarrel with you. Don't accuse me. The Chakravarti king gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Do you have any evidence? There is no evidence. Huh. The sound suddenly stopped. The Moon Empress walked out slowly. The Chakravarti king was stunned, and even Huang Liang's expression changed. The Moon Empress raised her hand and released a stream of the original power of wood. Her eyes shone brightly. All of a sudden, the skies seemed to darken, and the whole area was covered by the Moon Empress. Everyone's expression changed slightly, but they could no longer control the situation. It was as if they were under the control of the Moon Empress. Only Lin Feng's expression was calm as he stood alone on the outside. "No, Moon Empress, you." Huang Liang's expression changed. At this moment, the Chakravarti king woke up abruptly and found that the space ring on his right hand was gone. He broke out in cold sweat, but he did not even know how it was taken away. If the Moon Empress wanted to kill him, he would not even know how he died. Lin Feng's face revealed a faint smile. Instantly, swoosh, a white light flashed. A black iron token appeared in the Moon Empress's hand. It was engraved with strange symbols and patterns. Huang Liang's mouth froze in shock. Others might not know, but he knew that this was the identity token of the Alliance of Assassins. It was a precious token that only a king would have. It was a symbol of identity. "No, this is impossible." The Chakravarti king's eyes were as big as holes. He was completely dumbfounded. "I clearly placed him in." His voice stopped abruptly. The Chakravarti king's face turned pale. He would be a fool if he still did not know what was going on. Boom! The Chakravarti king's body shot out like an arrow, and he turned to flee. But at this moment, Lin Feng made his move. His gaze never left the Chakravarti king. The moment the Chakravarti king fled, Lin Feng sped up. The soul core in his mind spun rapidly. An invisible force spread around his body. Suddenly, the Moon Empress's eyes lit up, and she let out a soft cry. "Do you think you can escape?" Lin Feng curled his lips. Clang! The Dragon Slayer spear was unsheathed. The black light was shocking. A green flame suddenly ignited. "What's going on?" The Chakravarti king felt the scene of the Moon Empress replaying in his mind. The feeling of control disappeared completely. He felt as if he had fallen from heaven back to earth. He staggered. At this moment, he felt a terrifying killing intent behind him. Shit! Hide! It was too late. He could only fight. Golden light flashed. The Chakravarti king gritted his teeth, but he was too late. A shocking attack erupted in an instant. Soaring dragon. Lin Feng's spear intent exploded. In the sky, a huge white dragon roared and soared up with the terrifying, murderous intent of the Dragon Slayer's spear. A black hole exploded in an instant. The golden light had just appeared, but Lin Feng's attack was as fast as a thunderclap. It came crashing down. Die! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The Dragon Slayer's spear left a trail of afterimages. The terrifying energy was completely transformed into an attack. The thunder fire ring on Lin Feng's left hand shone brightly. The green light intensified. The power of the primordial fire increased rapidly. In an instant, light flashed. Boom! Everything went silent. The Chakravarti king's eyes widened. He was filled with unwillingness. His heart was pierced. Boom! The Chakravarti king's face was pale as he fell into a pool of blood. Tragic death. Not bad. Lan Heyu nodded in satisfaction. Zi Yao smiled. She seemed to be happy. The Moon Empress's eyes shone with a strange light. Lin Feng stood with the spear in his hand. The corner of his mouth twitched. The venomous snake hiding in the dark had finally been dealt with. This Dragon Slayer spear is surprisingly easy to use. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The weight of the Dragon Slayer spear had perfectly combined the spear's moves and spear intent. For a moment, he felt as if he had merged with the Dragon Slayer spear. Although it was only for a moment, it was very real. Could it be the 4th level of spear art? Lin Feng thought. For a martial artist, a good weapon was irreplaceable. The Dragon Slayer spear and the Thunder Fire ring have almost doubled my strength. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. It felt great. Huang Liang's face turned pale. Not long ago, he had sworn to vouch for his disciple. He did not expect to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. Looking at the black iron token and hearing the golden ray admit his identity, Huang Liang's heart tightened. His face was extremely ugly. Moon Empress, this. Huang Liang's expression kept changing. It's not your fault, the Moon Empress said slowly. It's his fault for being too cunning and deceiving everyone. Yes, that's right. Huang Liang nodded. He could not wait to cut ties with the Golden Ray. I will inform the four major forces of this matter as a warning to them. The beast riot is getting more and more intense. We must suppress all discord. The Moon Empress sighed softly. In the face of the survival of the human race, only by uniting will we have a chance of survival. Lin Feng looked at the Moon Empress. From her eyes, he could see that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. She was one of the strongest experts of the human race. Not only did she have the most beautiful appearance, but she also had a glowing heart. A kind heart. Unexpectedly, it went smoothly. I didn't expect the Golden Ray to confess without being pressed, Londa said with a laugh. Lin Feng, this is a great way to frame someone else. The Golden Ray will die if he confesses. If he doesn't, he will still die, you said casually. Ziyao looked at Lin Feng with a strange expression. She did not know why, but ever since Lin Feng confessed his feelings to her, she felt an inexplicable feeling in her heart, as if the barrier between them had been opened. When she looked at Lin Feng again, she felt uncertain. Did she like him? Ziyao pursed her lips. She did not know. Maybe she liked him? No, it's all thanks to the Moon Empress, Lin Feng said with a smile. He did not exaggerate at all. It was the truth. If the Moon Empress had not completely intimidated the Golden Ray with her strength, the Golden Ray would have defended himself. It would not be so easy to convict him. Now, he had run away with a guilty conscience. It would be better to kill him directly. Back in Western District, everyone's faces were relaxed and joyful. As soon as they entered the hall, everyone was stunned. They saw a beautiful figure standing there, waiting for them quietly. Tianqing. The Moon Empress was surprised. Vice President. Lani was also surprised. The Vice President of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce would not visit without a reason. She must have come to the Western District for some reason. And her gaze, Lin Feng? Everyone was confused. They did not know why the beautiful Vice President, who was always so efficient, was looking for Lin Feng. When did the two of them know each other? This was especially true for Ziyao, who pursed her lips and watched curiously. Vice President. Lin Feng nodded. From Tianqing's gaze, he seemed to sense something unusual. The fire god has run away. Tianqing's eyes were burning. Her short sentence left everyone in a daze. There was no beginning or end. However, Lin Feng was well aware of the entire situation. Instantly, he frowned and had a bad feeling in his heart. Compared to the Golden Ray, the fire god was the real danger. Not only did the fire god hate him, but he was also shockingly powerful. If he fought the fire god, Lin Feng didn't have much confidence. He left a piece of paper for you. Tianqing's gaze was strange. Lin Feng was also puzzled. He did not know what the fire god was up to. After taking the paper, Lin Feng's eyes changed slightly. He said softly, "First, you kill my son. Then, you force me to do something. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Lin Feng, you little brat, I'll tear you into pieces to comfort my son and daughter's soul in heaven." Lin Feng paused for a moment and spat out two words. Fire god. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Lin Feng felt a headache coming on. What did he kill the fire god's son and daughter? I don't ask for anything. I just work hard and update steadily. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 196. Lin Feng shrugged with a wry smile. Indeed, it was a little strange that the fire god hated him to the bone. The fire god has no relatives, the moon monarch said. That's right. His relatives are the fire spirit beasts in the fire god's forbidden ground. The fire god raised them since they were young and treated them like his own children. Azure nodded with a playful smile. Lin Feng, you didn't kill his fire spirit beasts, did you? Fire spirit master? Fire god's forbidden ground? Boom. Lin Feng's head shook as realization dawned on him. The image of the huge sea of fire and the fire spirit beast he killed appeared in his mind. It seems like Lin Feng looked at everyone and nodded. That's true. Everyone had an icy look on their faces. Tianqing looked at him strangely. Lin Feng, how many children did you kill to make him hate you so much? Lin Feng raised one finger helplessly. One? Azura asked in confusion. Idiot, it must be 10. Prison curled his lips. Lin Feng shook his head. It's 100. The crowd was in an uproar. Tianqing and the Moon Monarch shook their heads with a wry smile. Ziyao covered her mouth and chuckled. All right, you win. Tianqing was speechless as a trace of seriousness appeared between her brows. You have to be careful. The fire god's hatred for you is not ordinary. With his crazy personality, he is capable of doing anything. It's not up to him. Prison's eyes flashed coldly. Others may be afraid of this lunatic, but I, Azura, am not. Azura snorted and nodded at Lin Feng. Don't worry, Brother Lin. If the fire god dares to come to Heaven-Breaking City, I'll chop him up for you. Uncle Azura, when did you become so young? Ziyao asked with a smile. Azura scratched his head awkwardly. Everyone laughed heartily. A faint smile appeared on Lin Feng's face as he felt the warm atmosphere of this home. It was indeed as Ziyao had said. In the hunt, everyone was brothers and sisters, and there was no distinction between each other. Not to mention the 3 hunting masters. Even the high and mighty Moon Queen was willing to lower herself to stand up for him. Very protective, but only in this way could it be considered a home. Regardless of whether they were right or wrong, they would unite against the outside world. Thank you. Lin Feng nodded. He was indeed very happy to be able to enter the hunt. How is it, Brother Lin? Azura patted Lin Feng's shoulder and said with a smile, You'll be in charge of Heaven Breaker City and the training base from now on? Lin Feng was startled. A what? Lan's brows relaxed. It's settled then. Brother Lan, I have something to do. No problem. Lin Feng nodded. Since he had been appointed to assist the Blue Hunter, he had to fulfill his duty. Uncle Lan is blatantly slacking off. Ziyao smiled sweetly. Hee. Azura smiled, but in fact he did have something to do. To help the Moon Queen search for information about the 100 Falls ancient ruins, one of the 4 great despairs. However, this was an absolute secret. He couldn't even tell Ziyao, the Moon Queen's sister. In my position, I have to do what I should do. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Well said, Lan Kaihui said. Then, when do we depart, Brother Lin? Lin Feng thought for a moment and said, I have to go home first and bring my family here. Then, Lin Feng looked at Hunting Master Lan and nodded with a smile. I'll have to trouble Brother Lan to arrange a place for me tomorrow at noon. How about it? Okay, then Feng Ning and I will go first, Azure replied. He paused and was about to say something. Hey, Feng Ning, why are you pulling me? Let's go, Hunting Master. Don't disturb him. Feng Ning smiled meaningfully. What? Lan looked at Lin Feng, then at Ziyao. Seeing Ziyao's face redden, he immediately let out a few ohs and laughed. All right, Feng Ning, let's go. As his voice faded, Ziyao's face became even redder. She lowered her head. Amazing, Brother Lin, Azura whispered in Lin Feng's ear as he walked past him. He raised his thick eyebrows and left with a laugh. Only Lin Feng and Ziyao were left in the hall. Facing each other, there was no awkwardness. There was only a touch of charm. Their hearts were open. The man and woman who had just fallen in love had a good impression of each other. Looking at the figure in front of him and Ziyao, who lowered her head shyly, Lin Feng could feel the sweetness in his heart, even though he had never experienced the love between a man and a woman. Taking a step forward, Lin Feng's eyes brightened and his heartbeat sped up. Listening to the footsteps, Ziyao seemed to have smelled Lin Feng's scent. She rubbed her hands together, and her face was so red that juice could drip from it. Ziyao. Lin Feng walked in front of Ziyao and looked at the sweet beauty who was less than half an inch away from him. His heart was beating violently. Sniffing the fragrance of her body, it was intoxicating. Lin Feng gathered his courage and said softly, I like you, Ziyao. His voice was soft and gentle, but it was very shocking. With just a short sentence, Ziyao's face turned red and her head almost touched her chest. He really confessed to me. Ziyao's heart was beating wildly. The numbing feeling was even more intense. It was as if ice and snow had melted, becoming extremely sweet. Ziyao, Lin Feng called softly. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but there was a sweet taste to it. The anxiety in his heart gradually calmed down. Lin Feng's eyes revealed a faint joy as he gently touched the soft little hand. Suddenly, as if she had been electrocuted, Ziyao hummed and seemed to want to shrink back in shock. Lin Feng grabbed her tightly. In an instant, there seemed to be bursts of electricity passing into his heart. The hearts of the two people melted in an instant, hand in hand, feeling each other's temperature and heartbeat. It was full of a sweet atmosphere. There was no need to say anything. It was enough to know each other's feelings. Their relationship was officially established. Between the two people, their hearts were completely open. Although it was like poking through a layer of paper, everything was no longer the same. "I'm very happy, sister." The Moon Emperor looked at her sister and smiled meaningfully. "No, sister." Ziyao's pretty face turned red. "Really? Then who was the one smiling just now?" The Moon Emperor smiled. Ziyao was like a ripe red apple as she angrily said, "Elder sister, Cloud Sun City." "Brother, are you serious?" Lin Shueyer's eyes widened. "Heavens!" Lin Yin was also shocked. "Does the deputy city lord have a lot of power?" Lin Wanqing asked in surprise. "How is it compared to Qin Huai's sect leader?" "It's about the same, mother." Lin Feng smiled. "It's all about managing a city. There's not much difference." "Mother, don't listen to brother's nonsense." Lin Shueyer said. "The difference is more than 100,000 miles. Qin Hui's sect is only in charge of small Cloud Sun City. Brother is in charge of Patian City. That's one of the 4 king cities." Lin Wanqing was a little confused. She never cared about what the outside world was like. For a mother, she only cared about her children and her home. In fact, Lin Wanqing was not too sure about Lin Feng's current strength. She only knew that her son was very powerful now. Indeed, Lin Yin smiled. In simple terms, a king city is equal to 5 county cities. A county city is equal to 50 cities. Patian City is equal to 250 Cloud Sun cities. Lin Wanqing said softly. This time, she finally understood a little. In other words, Feng is now in charge of 250 Cloud Sun cities? Lin Wanqing suddenly said. "No, mother." Lin Feng smiled and glared at his sister. Lin Shueyer naughtily stuck out her tongue. She pinched her nose and said, "Mother, you don't know. Only people at the level of Emperor Wu can live in Patian City. People like Qin Hui's sect leader don't even have the qualifications to enter." Although it was hurtful, it was the truth. In Sky Martial Continent, everything was about strength. Yes, the most important thing is the difference in status. Lin Yin said softly, "Cloud Sun City compared to Patian City is like the Lin family village compared to Cloud Sun City. So it's like that." Lin Wanqing nodded as if she understood. Her brain couldn't wrap itself around it. But why did she think so much? Sometimes simplicity could be a blessing. "Brother, I have something to ask you for help," Lin Yin said. Lin Feng looked at his brother. Although his brother was born blind, he had always been very independent and strong. It was very similar to his personality. He didn't like to ask for help, even if he was his family. "You don't need to be polite with your big brother. Say it." Lin Feng smiled. "I want to enter the city lord's mansion and learn how to manage the city." Lin Yun's expression was very firm. Looking at Lin Yun, Lin Feng was filled with emotions. How could he, as the big brother, not understand what his brother was thinking? He wanted to share his burden and help him as much as possible. This was a blood-related brother. Lin Feng sighed softly. How could he bear to refuse? "No problem." Lin Feng smiled. Hearing his big brother's agreement, Lin Yun's serious face slowly relaxed and revealed a smile. "Brother, Sister Ro is here." Sister Shue's voice came from outside. Lin Feng immediately stood up, patted his brother's shoulder, and walked out of the hall. Instantly, he saw a familiar red figure smiling sweetly at him. Wasn't that Qin Ro? You came at the right time, Ro. Lin Feng smiled. Ever since he confirmed his relationship with Qin Ro, they had become much closer. However, that was only a relationship between family. What's wrong, Lindigo? Qin Ro opened her eyes wide in curiosity. Come with me. I brought a gift for Intrepid Bull. Lin Feng nodded. Gift? Qin Ro was surprised. What is it? Dragon eye medicine. Lin Feng smiled. Stepping out of the door, with Qin Ro accompanying him, he didn't feel lonely as he chatted and laughed along the way. After entering the hunt, the little girl seemed to be even more focused on cultivation and gave up on her admiration for him. Lin Feng was happy for her. After all, he already had Zi Yao in his heart. However, no matter what, he managed to handle this matter well. However, he didn't know if it was handled perfectly. Lindigo, are you not going to return to Firmament City in the future? Qin Ro pursed her lips. Why would I? Of course I'll come back. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Qin Ro's eyes shone brightly, as if she was hesitating about something. However, she didn't say anything. Just as she was about to speak, suddenly, boom, a violent tremor sounded. A sudden change occurred. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 197. Rumble. It was as if there was a sudden explosion, and the sky changed color. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, and he suddenly felt a violent tremor. Qin Ro, who was beside him, was already shocked. Suddenly, the buildings collapsed, the windows shattered, and the cars on the street rolled and exploded. Countless metal fragments fell from the buildings. Polypila, they fell like raindrops. Under the pull of gravity, they were like meteorites falling from the sky. Suddenly, there were screams. Oh my God! Help, help! Everyone run! A natural disaster is coming. The screams were mixed with sobs. In an instant, Firmament City became hell on earth. In just a few seconds, countless people lost their lives. The entire Firmament City fell into a huge panic. People were running in all directions. Their hair was disheveled, as if they had gone crazy. They had never seen such a scene before. Lindigo! Qin Ro anxiously shouted. It's a beast riot. Lin Feng's face froze. Firmament City was located in the center of Sky Marshall Continent. It was not like the Lin family village, which was located at the periphery, but the residents of Firmament City had never experienced such a scene before. They were all scared out of their wits, thinking that it was the end of the world. How can it be? Qin Ro was shocked. She had some understanding of beast riots, but she did not expect it to be so terrifying. It's birds. Lin Feng looked up at the sky. Innumerable black masses of magical beasts were descending at a terrifying speed. Boundless iron vultures, black-winged flying dragons, golden-winged crowned eagles. With a casual glance, Lin Feng saw countless high-level giant beast leaders, mid-level giant beast leaders, low-level giant beast leaders, countless of them. The flying magical beasts were extremely strong. As long as they survived, they were all above giant beast leader level. These overlords of the sky were now coming in groups, letting out deafening screams. Even though they were blocked by the energy shield, they could still hear those horrifying screams, which made the residents of Firmament City turn pale and their hearts tremble. Monster! The monsters are coming! Heavens, what kind of magical beast is that? It's so scary. We're dead! We're dead! Although the light barrier was able to conceal the appearance of the magical beasts, it was unable to conceal their enormous bodies. Furthermore, martial artists possessed extraordinary eyesight and could see even more clearly. Not to mention the color. Even that sinister face was incomparably clear. So powerful. Qin Ro's body trembled. Although her strength had improved very quickly, she was still only a primary martial grandmaster. Not to mention a horde leader-level magical beast. Even a general-level magical beast could easily kill her. Screams, cries, cries for help. One after another, the entire Firmament City fell into endless panic. It was hell on earth. On the street, a woman holding a baby fell down. The baby was crying loudly. At this time, a huge stone the size of a wash basin fell down from the sky. The woman was shocked. However, suddenly, a cluster of small fireballs coincidentally flew by and burned the huge stone to ashes. Lin Feng's eyes emitted a sharp light. The elemental fire in his hand rose. Go back and take care of my family. What about you, Linda Go? Qin Ro's expression instantly changed. Suddenly, a light flashed in front of her, and a huge shuttle-shaped object appeared in front of her. Jumping up, Lin Feng shot out a cold light from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were clear. I'll go take care of them. Whoosh! The cloud shuttle flew straight up. Without waiting for Qin Ro's reaction, Lin Feng turned into a stream of light and disappeared without a trace. Looking at Lin Feng's leaving figure and hearing his domineering voice, Qin Ro was stunned for a moment. In a daze, Qin Ro seemed to feel Lin Feng's figure in her heart slowly becoming taller, bigger, and out of reach. That was a high-level behemoth leader. No matter which one it was, it could easily destroy the entire Firmament City. In the Magic Beast Forest, these sky overlords were the top existences in the food chain. But Linda Go will definitely win. Qin Ro clenched her fists, her eyes shining. She must do her duty well and protect Brother Lin's family, so that he would not have to worry about the future. Battle. God, look, it's a human figure. Am I seeing things? Can a martial artist fly? It's true, it's true. Look, he's rushing towards the beasts. Following someone's exclamation, everyone immediately looked up at the sky. Lin Feng was like an eagle that had escaped from its cage, flying straight towards the energy shield. His speed was very fast. If Lin Feng hadn't deliberately lowered his speed before entering the shield, these martial artists in Firmament City wouldn't have been able to see him. The speed of the cloud shuttle was really amazing. In the blink of an eye, it had reached the top. Lin Feng wasn't worried about the safety of his family. This was the first time a beast riot had happened in Firmament City, but in the Lin family village, beasts attacked all year round. Father, mother, brother, and sister were already used to it. Moreover, the independent villa was quite sturdy. I finally understand the Moon Empress's intention. Lin Feng sighed softly. Witnessing all this with his own eyes, Lin Feng's heart was in pain. Indeed, these residents had nothing to do with him, but they were all humans with flesh and blood. They were from the same clan as him. Humans were humans because they had feelings and a kind heart. How could he watch them die in front of his own eyes? How could he do that? Whoosh! Lin Feng penetrated the energy shield, and a black mass appeared in front of him. He couldn't see the number of black figures at all, as if they were endless. Under the attacks of these beasts, the energy shield kept changing colors and was in imminent danger. It was like a wall that was about to collapse. Oh my God, does he want to die? Who is this martial artist? He can't be thinking of killing these beasts alone. Crazy, he's really crazy. Firmament City was already in a state of complete panic. Everyone's heart was shrouded in haze. Lin Feng's appearance didn't mean anything. No one believed that Lin Feng could fight these terrifying beasts alone. A tiny human. On the other side, there were thousands of beasts, and each of them was a terrifying beast leader. It was a gap comparable to a natural chasm. Lin Feng was like a tiny pebble in the middle of the ocean. But it was this small stone that changed everything. Pung! Lin Feng's eyes suddenly shone like the stars in the sky. In his mind, the content of the 4th chapter of Mystery of Souls suddenly appeared. A terrifying aura wrapped around his body like a spiral. In an instant, the aura of the beasts was completely covered by the radiance. The terrifying brightness. Lin Feng's eyes were like black holes. Crazy colors shot out like sharp arrows. Chi! 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 A formless power penetrated through his body. None of the beasts that were swept by those terrifying eyes survived. In an instant, all of them died. They didn't even know how they died. It was incomparably shocking. A boundless iron vulture let out a violent cry. Its body, which was nearly 1,000 meters long, was bombarding the energy shield. But in an instant, Lin Feng's eyes shone with a cold light. With just a glance, the boundless iron vulture froze, its eyes seeming to have lost its soul. Its huge wings stopped flapping, and the boundless iron vulture plummeted to the ground, completely dead. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. Similar scenes were playing out around Lin Feng in a shocking fashion. Hundreds and thousands of beasts were dying at a terrifying speed. It was like a plague. Extreme fear began to spread throughout the area. The Horde Lords already had a certain level of intelligence. Like a child, they knew who was strong and who was weak. They knew how to seek luck and avoid danger. Seeing its companions dying, a black-winged flying dragon flew into the sky with a terrified expression. But in an instant, it was caught by a cluster of fireballs and exploded. Pung, pung, pung. Clusters of fireballs flew in Lin Feng's hands like a meteor shower. To Lin Feng, who had an affinity for fire that exceeded the 10th rank, using fireballs was completely instantaneous. And he didn't even need to aim. Any angle, any direction could kill countless beasts. The emerald green fireballs were terrifyingly powerful. Their penetrative power was even stronger. As long as they brushed past the Horde Lords, they would die without a burial ground, regardless of rank. Each fireball could take the lives of dozens or even hundreds of beasts. Although the killing speed couldn't compare to the direct killing of the Soul Heart, it had an advantage. It didn't consume soul power. No matter how strong the Soul Heart was and how weak the Horde Lords were, they couldn't withstand accumulation. But the Soul Heart was guiding the Soul Heart. It was like holding something with one's hand. The energy used was next to nothing. Boom, boom, boom. Lin Feng killed incomparably crazily, without caring about anything else. At this time, everyone in Sun Cloud City was stunned. They looked up at the sky. The entire Sun Cloud City was silent. Ordinary people could only see some afterimages, but those martial artists could see them clearly. They were overwhelmed with shock. God, is this a human? The energy protective barrier had stopped changing colors a long time ago. Sun Cloud City also stopped shaking and returned to its peaceful state. But everyone's heart was filled with shock. They felt like they were going crazy. In an instant, boom! Hero, our hero! With a hysterical shout, instantly, everyone's emotions were ignited. Ignited, crazy to the point of exploding. Everyone was shouting at the top of their lungs. Their voices were filled with excitement and agitation. The fear on their faces had disappeared without a trace. It was replaced with worship and respect, as if they were worshiping a god. They were filled with sincerity and gratitude. Did God send him to save us? A woman clasped her hands together, lowered her head, and closed her eyes. It's the Son of God, the Son of God. A young man shouted excitedly. Hero, hero! Everyone cheered in unison. Excitement and excitement shrouded the entire Sun Cloud City. Everyone's eyes were filled with radiance. There was nothing to be afraid of. There was nothing to be afraid of. Because he existed. Hero. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.